It's that time of the week. Yes, this week's Cult Movie Show, your weekly look at cult movies. Please welcome your hosts, Warren and Velvet.
Merry Christmas! It is the Christmas edition of the Cult Movie Show. Number, I've forgotten already.
56.
56. With myself, Warren, and as always, Velvet. How are you going today, Velvet?
I have got the Christmas spirit like you would not believe this year. I actually did decorations, been singing Christmas carols. I watched so many Christmas movies this year because I was like, okay, I've got the Christmas playlist going. Like, you know, Santa Conquers the Martians from last year, Christmas Horror Story, and a bunch of others, including the ones we're reviewing today. And I have to say, I'm excited that this is going to be our second annual Christmas episode. Yay! Yes. Yes. If you've not checked out last year's Christmas special, I highly recommend it. It's actually one of my episodes. I still listen to it like once a month at least. And it was just so funny. And that's when we got introduced to two of the movies that are now part of my yearly playlist for Christmas. So during the month of Christmas. So check it out. That's episode 25. So if you have trouble remembering, just think Christmas is on the 25th in the United States, and that's episode 25. It was neat how it worked out like that.
Yeah, interesting that.
Yeah.
So which are the two that you keep going back to?
Okay, so one of them is absolutely love, like I said, our Christmas episode. That's episode 25. That's when we reviewed an independent film from Amir Scalangia. He did The Plague. So it had nothing to do with Christmas, but ended up putting some zombies in the mix. And then we did Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, as well as A Christmas Horror Story. And I have watched those two movies. Yeah, I watched those two movies are now part of my yearly playlist, as well as Rupert the Great, which we are going to be reviewing today. Yes. Spoiler. Love Actually, Jingle All the Way. Elf is actually one of my favorite ones with Will Ferrell. It's just so touching and so funny. I absolutely love that movie. He turned down $29 million to do the sequel. They were like, do Elf 2, please. We will pay you $29 million. And he wouldn't do it. And I love that. I was like, good.
That's good on him, yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. I hope one day I'm so rich that I can turn down $29 million just because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, Elf 2 would have just been the search for more money. It wouldn't have...
Right.
You know,
exactly.
No. The story had been told. It didn't need to go any further, I don't think, no. So, that's really cool. Well, I actually got to see a couple of movies over the last week. Which they're not Christmas related, but I finally got to actually see them, and I finally got to see The Kingsman: Golden Circle.
Ooh, did you like it?
Oh, I loved it.
Wasn't it fun?
So good. It was so good. It was every bit as good as the first one. Really good.
It was really surprising. They killed off a lot of people. I mean, it was so over the top. It's such a fun movie. And they've already, over here in the United States, they already have the double pack DVD of both, you know, the original and the sequel. So I'm going to pick that up pretty soon. Yeah, I'm going to pick that up and add that to my collection because that is so fun. Just so over the top. I love it.
Because I really don't think there's going to be a third to that. I think that's
I don't think so either. I think they're done. I hope they're done because honestly, I just don't. As much as I like those two movies, I don't feel like I feel like they should stop there.
Yes. There are some, you know, when they start doing it. It's a little bit like, I think 2 was enough. They couldn't really go any further, I don't think. Because I remember when the British did the Centrinians, brought back Centrinians, they did 2 movies and they finished on a high. Do you know what I mean? If they hadn't just kept doing them, they probably would have got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and just So so sometimes it's good just to leave it, move on, and come up with a new idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I agree. And the other one I got to finally see was Dunkirk, the movie from Britain.
How was that? How was that?
I would describe it very well. Only recently, we of course reviewed Dakota on the show, and I would say it's pretty much the same. It's
okay.
It's a movie that tells a story about a huge event, but it plays it on the macro level because obviously there's no money to be able to do it on the huge scale.
Right.
So it's so I was a bit disappointed with that. The other thing too, it suffered from exactly the same thing that you said Dakota suffered from, Velvet. You did
Character development.
There was basically none, absolutely none.
Oh, man.
And in fact,
that's a shame.
Two of our major characters, we don't even see their faces until really the last 5 minutes of the film. We just hear their voices because they've got their goggles and their flying helmets and their oxygen masks on, so we don't even really get to see them.
That's an interesting. That's an interesting storytelling choice. That's really strange, actually.
Yeah. So it was. I just wonder whether some of these films, a bit like Dakota and Dunkirk, if you're trying to tell. See, I think one of the problems is when you're doing a movie which is talking about a pivotal event of a nation's history, not just something that happened in a nation's history, but a pivotal event that shaped the way the country would be from that point on,
Right.
Sometimes I just don't know if you can do these sorts of movies at the macro level. I think they need to be
I agree.
done.
And honestly, like you're telling me, like some of the main characters, you don't see their face until the last 5 minutes of the movie. I mean, I'm not a filmmaker. I can't act. I really have no business criticizing anybody's films. But for me, like you and I automatically know that dehumanizes your character. We have no face to attach to the voice. Why are we going to care about what happens to these characters other than the fact that they're humans and they're soldiers in a war? That's just horrible storytelling technique. That actually shocks me to my core to hear that is still being done in movies.
Yeah, and it's an interesting film too because it runs with two different time zones. Like the movie is done, it takes you a second to pick up what's going on, but the movie has, if you can imagine, there's the night before and then the following day, but you see them in random order. They're not all shown at the same time. They're shown in random order. So, for instance, you will see the end result of something, but it's not till half an hour later that you actually see what happened to bring up that end result. It's an very interesting way of doing it, yeah. So
non-linear storytelling that can work for you or against you.
Yeah.
I don't know. In that movie, it sounds like it probably works against it.
It's Look, I'll put it this way: I came out of it feeling quite disappointed.
That's a shame.
Yeah, because it's Dunkirk is like it shaped British culture, and it didn't just shape history, it shaped the British culture, the way they think about themselves. So something like that, I just don't know if you can tell at the macro level. That's my thought. Same as Dakota.
Yeah, and I think that's
Dakota shaped the way Australians are today. So you're telling it at a macro level, it really should maybe be bigger. But anyway, just my opinion. So
no, I agree. I totally agree. I actually went to the movies yesterday spontaneously, and I saw Downsizing with Matt Damon.
Okay.
Have you heard about this Downsizing?
Yes, I've seen the adverts for it.
It was very fun. I was surprised how long the movie was because based on the previews, I thought it was going to be your standard hour and a half. This movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Wow.
There's a little bit of filler, but I feel like for the most part, it actually has very good pacing because they wanted you to understand the technology, but they did it in a way that was not boring. Like they were talking about, for example, like when they shrink people down to 5 centimeters, that there's some stuff they have to do to them. So what they do before they shrink them is they knock them out, basically. They knock them out with some, anesthesia, and they like clean them out. Like they basically give them colonics, they give them enemas, and I'm kind of like, so at first you're like, what the hell? What's going on? And then another thing you see them doing is they do dentistry on them. Like if you have any kind of fillings, any kind of prosthetic teeth, they take it out. And you're like, that's strange. Why would they do that? Because when you get shrunk, it has to be organic matter. It has to be stuff that's part of your body. So if you have any kind of prosthetics or dentistry, it won't shrink down. And at one point in the movie, they mentioned how one person got killed because when they shrunk him down, they forgot to remove his golden tooth and his head exploded.
Okay.
So there's great attention to detail. It's got a great environmental message. So I think you would like it since you like a lot of eco-friendly movies, and just shows how, like, if we were able to reduce our size, how we would reduce our carbon footprint and the amount of, litter and trash pollution that we cause. So it's really interesting. But then also, I don't know, it was just a neat movie, actually. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. So that's one that if you have some time to go to the theater, that's fun to see in the theater.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of interesting characters. Christoph Waltz is in this. He's like he's Hollywood's favorite German right now.
Yes.
He's in so many movies. He's in this, and I think he plays kind of like, I thought he was kind of doing like a French accent or something, but at one point he says he's Serbian, and I'm like, oh, that's why I couldn't place the accent. I'm not too, I'm not too well versed in that type of accent. But
well, he speaks about 5 different languages.
Yes,
I think,
he does.
and he's fluent in all of them too. He's not.
Yes.
It's not just schoolboy, languages.
No.
Yeah.
Like in Glorious Bastards, he's amazing in that because he switches from English, German, and French, and
yes.
I think even Italian. Yeah, even Italian at one point.
Yeah.
And he's very he's flawless in that movie, and he's pretty much good in anything I see him in. So, downsizing. Yeah, downsizing. It's heartfelt, it's funny, and it was just interesting. I liked it. It was a lot of fun. Worth checking out.
Cool. And the other thing too is, I'll just say it very. No, I won't. Don't worry about it.
Okay, no problem. So we got Christmas movies today.
Yes.
Whee! And one mini movie that's not Christmas themed. And even our break songs are going to be Christmas themed today, guys. So we've got the spirit.
It's jingle all the way with. So I think that's the thing about Christmas, isn't it? It's like all religious holidays are only kind of relevant if you belong to that religion, right?
Right.
But Christmas is kind of different because it's Christmas for a lot of people. It's not a religious holiday; it's a social holiday. You know what I mean? Because.
Right.
And so, like, Santa is not really religious anymore. Santa is now a jolly old man who, is nice to children. There's no religious overtones to Santa anymore. There used to be, but there's not anymore. So, so in a sense, everybody can sort of enjoy Christmas. You don't have to go down the religious path of Christmas. You can just go down the party line. Of Christmas.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's what makes it kind of a different holiday to all the others.
Yeah, that's what I love about it, too, is that it's no longer a religious holiday. Because, when I was younger, it was definitely that connection to church and holiday, religion and holiday. And now, like you said, now it's all about just an excuse for people to get together, show appreciation for each other, and just, goodwill towards each other. I mean, it's just a fun holiday now. I really like it. And you don't have to spend money to enjoy it either. I mean, you can just invite a bunch of friends over and watch TV. I mean, really, it's really lovely. I like it a lot.
Well, that's exactly right. It's the social side of it. Or if you're Australian, it's the alcohol-fueled side of it.
Fair enough.
Australians
we got our eggnog. We actually had some eggnog this week, and just with rum. And I was kind of like, ooh, and I'm not a rum drinker, so for me it was just like literally like a shot of rum in my eggnog, and that was enough for me. I'm like, oh, I think I'm getting drunk already.
Yeah. see, Australians don't really do the eggnog thing. It's just too hot. It's too hot to do.
Fair enough.
You're not going to drink this milky, creamy creation. You know what I mean? It's just too, sort of thing. So, it's just not really going to happen. But it's never caught on here, eggnog. Just never caught on. So
it tastes a lot like, it always reminds me of like butterscotch. In case anybody's like, what does eggnog taste like? Because it sounds disgusting, but it really just it's sweet. It tastes like butterscotch. If you've had butterscotch, yeah.
Well, you can do the Homer Simpson thing and pour it on your cornflakes.
Oh, yuck, that's too much.
I remember when he did that.
That's gross. Yuck.
I remember when he did that. But anyway, so our first film, our first cab off the rank
oh, goodness.
today is a very interesting movie from Mexico. And interesting, I think, is an understatement for this movie.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
It's from 1959, but it is in colour. And its official title is Santa Claus. But it's more widely known outside of Mexico and possibly Spain. I don't really know. But it's more widely known as Santa Claus versus the Devil. Yes, I'm not joking. Santa Claus versus the Devil. It's
Man.
Where do we even begin with this? Where do we even begin? All right.
Oh my God. At the beginning is weird enough.
So a quick synopsis. So basically, the whole idea, and it's also a bit of an all singing, all dancing number as well.
Oh man!
Now, basically, the whole idea is that Santa doesn't actually live on the North Pole. He lives in outer space, which actually seems to be in geosynchronous orbit with the North Pole, from what we can gather. But he's in outer space, which somehow has clouds in it. I don't quite know but anyway,
I don't know.
Right, so anyway, so he lives on a cloud, in outer space in his big castle sort of thing, and of course we see him when he's basically preparing for Christmas. It's Christmas Eve, and anyway, he has got this sort of like giant telescope, which is just like this extendable thing with this eye that actually has eyelashes on it, unbelievably.
Oh, right? My God. What was that, the dream scope?
I think, no, the dream scope's a different thing. We'll get to that.
Because there's also the ear scope.
And there's the ear scope, which actually has an ear attached to it. Unbelievable, yeah. Anyway, so with this, he can view down on Earth and watch whether the children are being naughty or nice. So he knows, whether to give what presents to give them and all the rest of it. But at the same time, he also realizes that the devil is trying to influence the children to be bad, and the devil is his great arch nemesis. So anyway, when he actually goes down to Earth to, distribute all the presents, although he only seems to manage to distribute about 5,
I know, he's so slow.
I know.
I was like, wow, this is the slowest Santa ever. He needs to start like 6 months in advance to deliver all the presents.
Because he only gets to about 5 houses, and they're all in Mexico City too, by the way. But anyway, so the devil then goes to try to stop him, to influence the children, and to try to stop Santa from delivering the presents with lots of different, pranks and tricks and all sorts of things. So the devil and Santa will do battle on Earth to basically see who will win. Well, of course, we all know who's going to win in the end. And that's really our movie, to be honest. There's not a lot. There's not a lot more to it than that.
You have to see this one to believe it. Yeah, you have to see this one to believe it. It's just, right from the beginning when they're just like, basically Santa lives in space on clouds. You're like, wait, what? Did I hear that right? Well, and then all of a sudden, oh man, okay, yeah. I thought this was kind of weird. I don't know. This is just me. Santa at the very beginning is setting up some decorations. He's setting up a nativity scene. Yes, the birth of Jesus Christ. He's setting that up, and I'm kind of like, I guess Santa Claus is a Christian. I was like, that's weird.
It's Mexican. I mean, you don't remember, they're pretty
fair enough.
I mean, Mexico's a pretty devoutly Catholic country, remember? So
that's true. That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. So, okay, we have to talk about this. Okay, Santa Claus is so jolly, he laughs all the fucking time for no reason. The very first time you see Santa, he's all, And you're like, what the fuck are you laughing about? Nothing. That's just what he does. He just walks around and laughs. But he's so jolly, so happy, because he's Santa.
But he doesn't laugh like a normal person. He laughs more like he's a serial killer. You know, it's like, his laugh isn't sort of like, ho, ho, ho. It's more like, ho, 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 ho.
Yes.
You know, you expect him to pull out a switchblade and a chainsaw and put on a hockey mask, you know, and take on the elves, you know, sort of like.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, Santa's workshop, I guess that's what you could call it. It was so weird because, like I said, people, it's in space, it's on clouds, and for whatever reason, he has children from like basically all continents and different countries, and they did their damnedest in this movie to make Santa's workshop a version of It's a Small World after all.
Yes.
Because they just had random songs, but instead of having like the same song sang in different languages, like he kept introducing, like saying, and I have children from this country, and I have children from that country, and every single time he would say what country it was, they would go to the stereotypical version of children that would be from that country, kind of racist actually, and have them sing a song. Okay, when it got to about like 5 of these, I'm like, okay, pause this. Okay, hold on. I'm going to start writing these down, and I'm going to do what I can. Okay, here we go, people.
Yeah.
So they start every single time. Like Santa's sitting in front of like a big screen, kind of like I guess what we would say now a TV screen or a monitor, and he's sitting at a keyboard. I mean, like a piano keyboard, not a computer keyboard, piano keyboard, making music, and he's playing some song, and on the screen will pop up. He's like, I've got children from Africa. Shows a bunch of little black children dressed in stereotypical tribal African fashion, dancing around and singing a song. Then he goes, Spain, traditional dressed children from Spain, supposedly singing a song in Spanish. And that's the thing, too. They would always go to the language of the country. Children from Japan, Asian children singing supposedly in Japanese. England, okay, here's where it started being funny. Okay, we have kids supposedly from England, and they're singing a song. What do they sing? London Bridge is falling down.
Yeah.
That is not a Christmas song. What is that?
Well, London Bridge is falling down is about beheading the king. That's what the song is about. My understanding is, I think the song is about beheading Charles I, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But I think that's the origins of it.
I think you're right. Yeah, I believe you're right. Definitely not Christmas related. then he says China, got Asian children. Okay, then we said Orient, which I don't know how it is for other people in the world, but Orient's one of those words we have to be really careful with in the United States. Saying Orient and Oriental can oftentimes be extremely offensive over here. So just for me to see him say, we have kids from the Orient, you're like, what the fuck?
Well, I think,
that's so racist.
Well, I think the other thing, too, is I think the word Orient isn't actually offensive. It's to call somebody Oriental is offensive.
Right.
Maybe I shouldn't
It's cultural. It's cultural.
But
it's very cultural. Yeah, exactly. It just depends on where you are, how it's used, etc. But it was just, for me, just funny to be like, we have kids from the Orient. And then he shows what we would consider now most likely children from India or Indonesia, around that area. And they sing a song in their native tongue. Then he even says something about Russia, like, we even got cooperation from Russia or something like that.
I love the way they have to cooperate with the Russians. You know, it's like, you know, well, I'm just trying to think, when was this movie again? 1950?
Okay, 1959,
was Stalin still alive in 1959?
I'm not 100% sure. It was, I don't know, there was kind of like, I don't know, yeah, it kind of hinted at a bit of a, kind of not quite Cold War, but kind of like, they might be the enemy, but but it's Christmas.
But you got to remember, though, Catholics and communists have always had especially too in the Latin communities, you know, like Spain, and I suppose Central America. Like, there's always it's like the church itself has actually been very anti-communist. So it's like, so that kind of makes sense that he would sort of say, and we've kind of like negotiated with the Russians so they can have Christmas. It's kind of like,
oh my God. Okay, people, and this is we're barely halfway through. This is still going on. This goes on for like 20 minutes because then they go France.
It's 20 minutes.
Yeah, like 20 minutes.
And he's playing the freaking pipe organ, like some psychopath from, what is it, the opera, Phantom of the Opera.
I like that, the psychopath from the opera. Then we got France, we got Germany, we got Italy. Each time kids that are most of the time they're dressed in what's considered like traditional dress for that country, and the kids sing a song in the native tongue of that country. The Caribbean, South America, Central America. Okay, USA, I died. Okay, when it said USA and it had a little boy and a little girl dressed up as a cowboy.
Cowboys, I know.
And they sang Mary Had a Little Lamb, and they were like not even singing it right. Like they were like out of sync. They're like, Mary Had a Little Lamb. And just like not, and like, and they did 2 verses, which was one verse way too many.
Really,
half a verse was too many. It just went too long. And then Mexico, I died again. Because then they said Mexico, and they have some kids singing in Spanish. Do they sing a Christmas song in a Christmas movie? No, they sing La Cucaracha. Anybody who does not speak Spanish, La Cucaracha is Spanish for cockroach. They're singing about a cockroach. Okay. And finally, that part of the movie. Oh, and they forgot Australia. What the fuck? I was waiting for Australia to pop up. I was dying to see what the kids were going to sing. And they forgot Australia.
Well, it's not surprising, really. Most people forget Australia. But my favourite that they had in all of this was they lumped Argentina and Brazil together. Because it came up Argentina and Brazil. And it's like, hang on a second. How different are they? Not only do they speak different languages, one speaks Spanish, one speaks Portuguese.
Yeah.
Their cultures are totally different, but they lump them together like one country.
That was so weird. Yeah, they're like, South America with Brazil and Argentina. And we're like, huh? Oh, okay.
It's like, it's like saying Italy and bloody Belgium are the same place.
Right.
It's
and
really
I'm
weird.
not sure if the kids sing in Portuguese or Spanish. Sorry, guys. Oh, and I have to say, this movie's public domain, so anybody's welcome to type in Santa Claus versus the Devil into a search engine and watch this movie for free. So I was hoping to find this movie in Spanish, but it looks like the only thing that survived is the English dub, which I don't know if that makes it worse or better.
Well, I don't think there was ever actually a subtitled version of the Spanish version.
I don't think so.
Because my understanding is that a guy called Ken Smith actually directed the English cut. So, and I think that was released in the United States in 1960.
And it was only shown like a couple of times because it wasn't like syndicated. It was basically they did it for a special event is what I understood. Like it's like today is Christmas and today only you can see Santa Claus versus the Devil. Like it was a special viewing. It wasn't like released like widely. It was like only like a special event like for like 1 or 2 days. So I was like, it's interesting. Well,
But there's some really interesting things about this movie, though. I mean, it's like when we see that, when I get to some of the ludicrousness of Santa's workshop and headquarters, but it's like the kids and the families. It's like they actually have a wealthy family, they have a poor family. It's like they actually are trying to show. Although, interestingly enough, they didn't have an indigenous Mexican family, which was very interesting. They were
these were Caucasian-centric, yes.
Yeah, like the post-Spanish, sort of Mexico. There were no indigenous ones. So that was kind of interesting. Although, once again, 1959, so probably to be expected. But what was interesting about it is that they didn't make one family better than the other. Like the poor family and the wealthy family, they kind of put them on the same level, which was very interesting. I don't know what you thought about that, but I thought that was
definitely. There was some crazy shit in this movie because, basically the rich kid, you would think he has it the best for Christmas. He's going to get all the presents he wants. His parents aren't worried about money, but his parents evidently aren't very good at giving affection and attention. So this kid's basically asking Santa for the love of his parents for Christmas. So it's really sad, actually. But then they show Santa like listening in on his thoughts, watching him, and Santa says, "Maybe your parents love you, maybe they don't." I'm like,
oh my God, maybe they don't.
Did he just say that? What the fuck?
But the other thing too is that while he's busy, sort of handing out the presents, as we said, he only actually gets to about 5 houses over the night.
Oh my God.
But he actually manages to go and track down the parents at a nightclub that they're at, and actually pretends to be a waiter so he can give them a special potion so they will remember the love of their son. So how does he have time to do all this?
Oh my God, because Santa Claus is magic.
Oh,
he has to be. Oh, no, actually, it's not Santa Claus's magic. It's Merlin. Yes, people, you heard me correctly. Merlin, the magician, is in this movie.
So we have a figure from British folklore that somehow ends up living with Santa in space.
And that scene runs way too long, by the way. When they introduce Merlin in Santa's workshop, he is Santa's most devoted helper, and he's the one that makes all the magic for Santa, so Santa can disappear and Santa can fly. And
but isn't Santa such a prick? He only comes to visit him once a year. They live in the same fucking house.
Wow.
And Merlin actually sort of says, "I'll see you again next year." It's like,
dang. It's like, thanks for the help, man. Oh my God.
It's like, thanks for my potions. I'm out of here. I'll see you on the 24th next year.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
Oh my God. And then he has a special locksmith that looks like a Viking warrior.
I forgot about that. He looks like I can't remember, in Greek mythology, there's a god that's like basically the god of blacksmithing, and that's what he reminded me of. I can't remember his name. Anyways, but that's who I thought that was supposed to be at first. And I'm like, oh, now we got Greek mythology too. Like,
oh, you mean the half man, half goat? Is that the one you're talking about? Is that the...
No, not Pan. I just can't remember off the top of my head. It's just one of those obscure Greek mythological creatures that he hangs out in Mount Olympus, but he's like a blacksmith. And he's lame for some reason. Like he has a limp, like he has a deformity. But anyways, this guy didn't have the deformity. But at first I thought it was like, oh God, are they doing Greek mythology in this movie too? I was like, I don't know. And I don't know why I should be surprised. We got the fucking devil dancing in hell, and oh God.
All they seem to do is sit up on Mount Olympus, and then they travel down to the real world to have sets with people and then go back
right
up. I mean, it's all they freaking do, the Greek gods.
That's all they do, and every once in a while they cause bad weather. It's
You know? Oh, God.
Man. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, so the devil. I suppose we should describe the
devil.
Now, when we are first introduced to the devil, we go to, Hades or hell or whatever it is that you call it. And there's a whole heap of devils, and they're all doing this song and dance routine. And
it's like awful choreography. It's not well choreographed at all. They're all just flailing around, jumping around. It's yuck. It looks awful.
And the devil is quite literally dressed like the way your kids were dressed like the devil on Halloween. They're in a red suit. With horns, a red painted face, and the red suit is quite literally just a pair of long johns dyed red.
Oh, and he's got like those, I don't know how you do, like if you think of a court gesture, how they have that little skirt around their waist with like cutting a bunch of slits. Anyway, it has that too. But yeah, the horns were quite impressive, I must say. But and so there's all these little devils. And then there's Lucifer. We don't see Lucifer. We just hear Lucifer's voice. And he singles out one of the devils. The devil's name is Pitch, as in pitch black, and tells him he has to go to Earth, and his mission is to corrupt all the children so they'll be on Santa's naughty list. And if Pitch fails this mission, he'll be punished by having to eat chocolate ice cream.
Yes, I know. It's like the way they punish you in hell is to give you nice things.
Give you nice things. Okay, but he's worried about that. There's a lot of really awful looking stuff in this movie. At one point, there's a puppet show That shit looks terrible. It's hard to explain, people. You just have to see it to believe it. It's just these really ugly puppets, and they start biting each other's noses and hitting each other, and you're just like, what? And then there is Lupita, our poor girl that all she wants for Christmas is a doll, and her parents are too poor to get her one. So she's asking Santa to bring her a doll, and the devil enters the children's dreams to corrupt them. You know, he's kind of like a Freddy Krueger of Christmas.
Yes, he is.
And Lupita has this dream about dancing dolls, but it's full-size people that are supposed to be dressed as this doll. They're wearing these horrifying rubber heads with the doll face painted on. It looks just like a nightmare sequence, and they're dancing around her. You know, she's in the middle. They're dancing around her in a circle, and they're telling her, you have to steal. You have to be bad. If you don't steal, you won't get what you want. And I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, it just looks like a nightmare sequence. I was like, ugh. Yeah, and the choreography, again, was awful. Just not attractive, not well synced, just yuck.
I mean, all I can think is that this is this is clearly, I think, was meant to be a kids' movie that wasn't necessarily marketed as a kids' movie outside of Mexico. I mean, that's the way, the way I kind of see it. Just, to me, it does have all those makings of a kids' movie. You've got song and dance. The devil's not scary. He's kind of just bad. Like, the devil's more mischievous than he is actually evil.
Right.
You know, like the devil doesn't cause car crashes. The devil doesn't make buildings collapse. The devil just, will put a string along the street so someone will trip over it. Or it's, he reminds me more of George Spigot in Bedazzled. Remember when we did Bedazzled? He's kind of more that sort of devil. He's more a practical joker rather than but some of the scenes when Santa and the devil are actually like trying to prank each other inside other people's houses. It's like, I mean, it's just, oh my God.
Oh my God. Santa shoots the devil in the ass with a little mini cannon that fires like a spear and lands in the devil's ass, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Oh man. Okay, Santa's reindeer, that literally had me shaking my head in disgust. That was just so cheap.
That clockwork. That clockwork. I mean, so the idea that, yes, because he's a toy maker, he actually makes the
reindeer are toys that he winds up to fly.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that when he leaves the Santa's castle or whatever it is, he flies off, and there's this model of him on the sleigh with the reindeer flying through space. And there's a moon, right? The moon in the background, right? But he's clearly, because of the proportions, something like, I don't know, 20,000 miles away from the thing,
Oh, my God.
Or 200,000 miles away from the thing. But they sort of say, oh, that was lucky. Santa almost ran into the moon.
Oh, gee. Jeez. Okay, and this is just, they have weird lore in this movie. For example, Santa has to come back to the castle, or I guess his workshop, before sunrise, or the reindeer will turn into dust. Why? Yes. I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
It's just, yes. And so what are some of the things he carries with him? He has, Merlin gives him the sleep dust, which makes the children go to sleep. He also gives him a flower, and if you sniff the flower, you become invisible, which is a really interesting one. The flower of invisibility.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Yeah, it's like a white rose. I was like, oh, my goodness. That's nice. So Santa goes to people's houses and drugs them. That's nice.
I know. And so we then end up with a scene where the devil steals the flower and makes Santa lose his magic dust. And so Santa gets trapped up a tree by a guard dog. And and then Merlin has to come to the rescue because Santa is stuck up a tree. I mean, it's just while the devil is dancing around below the tree. It's just
literally dancing, people. Yes. Literally dancing. It's wow. This is one of those movies that the moment I heard about it, I was like, oh my God, we have to watch this. But then I kept hearing it was really bad. And I thought, well, it has to be so bad it's good. For me, unfortunately, this is not so bad it's good. It's just so weird.
I know.
It's just so all over the place. It's just such a strange movie. And at the same time, I honestly just don't think it's that appropriate for children.
I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, remember, put it back in its time. It's 1959.
Oh, okay.
The other thing too is the devil's not really evil. He's more mischievous. So he's not a scary character in that sense, I would actually maybe just question Santa's sort of, child labour laws. I mean, he's got all these kids.
I didn't even think of that.
He's got all these kids working for him. It's like one of these parents just sort of say, yeah, no worries, Santa, just take our kids. It's all right. They can go and live with you.
Yeah, that was so weird. I don't know what that was. That was the thing, too. I was like, are they making toys? Or are they just there? I didn't get why all these kids were in space with Santa. I don't understand.
I know.
I'm not sure what was going on there.
And these kids, sort of seem to have adult capabilities of, I mean, I suppose they're meant to be a bit like the elves, but...
I guess?
I mean, maybe it's just meant to be an idea that it's like, if the movie was originally designed for kids, making the assistants for Santa children kind of maybe allows the children to write themselves into the story, maybe. I don't know. That's about the only reason I can think of why he'd have all these kids. And why the fuck we'd have to have a 15 to 20 minute introduction of all these different children from around the world.
And it would have made sense if they did like I said, like the Big Mouse. They have It's a Small World After All. You have the same song sang in different languages. But, I mean, you got people singing London Bridge is Falling Down, La Cucaracha, Mary Has a Little Lamb. They're not even Christmas songs.
I'd also just cut the scene down to 5 minutes.
Jeez, I know.
Fucking minutes
they could have, that could have been really fast. Just just list them off really quick and just one frame. Africa, Spain, Japan, England, China. It's like, I don't know why they did that. I was just shocked. Oh, we didn't talk about the Dream Scope, did we? No, he has a machine called the Dream Scope that reads your dreams. So I was like, wow, so, Santa's got all the technology in this movie to spy on you and drug you in case you wake up while he's there delivering presents. And he's and they also had the ear scope to listen in on conversations to see if kids are talking naughty. But I did like this scene, actually. They had children writing letters to Santa in the movie, which was actually quite sweet. I really liked that. That was very cute. And they even had one kid that was asking Santa for a little brother.
Yes.
So Santa forwards requests for siblings to the stork. Which I thought was very cute.
I know he forwarded the mail to the stork. I
thought that was so cute. Yeah, I was like, that's very funny.
But one kid asked for a machine gun, and he just goes, ho, 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 we'll wait and see. It's like, yeah, you're going to give a child a fucking automatic weapon. I mean...
He's got a Winchester repeating arms. How about that?
Yes. Oh, my God, yeah.
Oh, my God. There's a scene of Santa exercising. That scene runs too long. I'm just like, okay... I was just honestly towards the last 20 minutes of this movie, I kept nodding off. Not because the movie's boring. I was just so tired, and the movie was so weird that I think my brain just couldn't handle it anymore. It was just getting overstimulated with all the nonsense. I was just like,
what about some of the things? In order to jump off high objects and then to land on the ground, Santa has this tiny toy parasol like Mary Poppins, but it's tiny. God. It's only about 20 centimeters across. And he holds it up and he jumps off and he floats down to Earth with this tiny parasol.
That's amazing. I want to know how that works. That defies the laws of physics. I want to know. Okay, and whenever Santa very first starts delivering, I guess, presents in Mexico, because at one point the kids do say, oh, he's already been to this country, that country, this country, that country. He only has Mexico left. So evidently he's faster than he appears in the movie because he was slow as shit. But he arrives at this house, and Pitch, our devil, has moved the chimney. So Santa goes down the chimney, and then Pitch moves the chimney so Santa can't get back out of the house. But then, for some reason, Pitch puts the chimney back in place. And I'm like, why would you move the chimney back if you were trying to mess him up? I don't know. It's a movie. A weird movie.
But how do you move the fucking chimney? He just pushes it. Like, he just pushes it. I mean... oh God, it is. I mean, it is. And the other thing too is it's like, the bad kids. There are these 3 bad kids in this, right? But but it's like, oh, they're so bad, and so they won't be getting anything. These kids are fucking orphans living in an orphanage, right? They don't have parents or anything like that, and you're sort of thinking, Santa, why do you reckon... They don't have
any guidance.
Yes, like, why do you reckon they're bad? They're living in a fucking orphanage in 1959. How bloody switched on do you reckon they're going to be? It's
poor thing. Now I feel bad for them.
Yeah, so Santa's going to punish them because these poor kids are fucking orphans, I mean...
And he actually does give them a present. Did he give them lumps of coal, or did he give them rocks? What did he give them?
There's a lump of coal, the traditional...
Yeah, which is the traditional, if you're bad, you get lumps of coal. And they're like, oh, this sucks. They had a variety of foreign languages spoken randomly, like just constantly they would have a kid speak, a non-English language, and Santa Claus would kind of translate or just be like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. And you're like, what the fuck did the kid say? I don't know. Because literally somebody would speak Spanish, then somebody would speak French, and then somebody would speak, I guess, Chinese, or just like random languages, and you're just like, oh, man. And no captions, people. No captions.
But also, doesn't he has an argument with one of the Russian children about the fact that he's still using clockwork wind-up toy reindeer instead of a spaceship.
I forgot about that.
Because
the Russians are in the space race, And
he's going, no, you're wrong. We're wrong. We're not ready to use spaceships yet. We have to use
my goodness.
It's just...
Well, it was 1959.
yeah, I know.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, this movie, wow. Okay, so I'm a big fan of imdb.com, not sponsored, just saying. So I often go there for fact checking and just to get a couple of stats about the films that we review. And they have a lovely little list on imdb.com called the bottom rated movies top 100, or I guess it should be the bottom 100. Yeah. Santa Claus, or Santa Claus versus the Devil, is currently number 95 on this 100 film list. So it cracked the top 100 here.
That's pretty
for good reason. What was the score?
I was going to say, what was the very worst?
Oh, I was actually looking at that, and I was like, wow, it must be bad because... Okay, so the current score for this one is, out of a possible 10 stars, Santa Claus only has 2.5. But number one right now, because this does change, is it's currently called number one is Codename KOZ from 2015, and it has, out of a possible 10 stars, it has 1.4. So it's evidently pretty bad. At number 5 is Monos, The Hands of Fate. At one point, I thought we should review that, but no, that movie is so boring. Yeah. It's so boring that I was like, never mind.
You'd have some movies that are just bad, but that's all right. You can deal with that. But when they're bad because they're boring, that's when...
Yes.
Like, oh, no.
No, we try not to do those kind of movies because, damn, we got to watch it.
Yeah, I know. Better things to do with my life, like clean the toilet or something,
So, like this one, Santa Claus versus the Devil, like I said, it wasn't boring. It was just so weird.
Oh, I know.
You just have to see how weird this is. At the same time, this is not a movie I recommend. Even if you're curious, I'm like, yeah, you can really skip this one.
It's the other thing too is that like Santa Claus versus the Martians is actually kind of funny.
I love that movie.
But this is not funny.
Movie.
This is just weird. I know. It's like,
exactly. It's not funny. It's just weird. It's just like, oh my God, what is going on? And there's no Mrs. Claus in this one, and we don't see Mrs. Claus until Santa conquers the Martians. So
yes,
yeah. Don't be surprised at the lack of Mrs. Santa Claus in this one.
Yes, there's no Mrs. Claus in. There's no Mrs. Claus in this.
Oh my goodness!
And no elves.
No elves because we have slave labor children. Why would you need elves?
Slave labor children. He lives in outer space.
The devil is his great nemesis.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That was weird. And how, like, Santa was able to, like, spy on the devil to see when he was causing mischief? I don't know. It just, this movie just makes no sense.
No, it's like, yeah. You know, and you also have to ask, you know, I mean, isn't the whole idea of the devil meant to be a fallen angel who fights with God or something or other? I mean, it's like,
right.
So what's he done? Just left it up to Santa. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, Santa,
wow.
you deal with the devil. I'm going to have the weekend off. You know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like, you got this, Santa. Just wind up the reindeer and get going. Sprinkle some forgetful dust or sleep dust. You'll be good. Yeah, like, oh my God.
Oh, dearie me.
Yeah, strange movie. Very odd. And I don't think I really have much else I can say.
No, I think it's time. I think it's time to rate this bugger.
Oh man.
So
okay.
What are you going to give it, Velvet?
Wow. Okay, so I have a possible 5 Eric Roberts. Again, this one's just so weird. It's hard to understand. It's hard to believe. Ugly choreography, terrible storyline. Honestly, I just don't recommend anybody see this. At the same time, it is so weird that if you do sit down and watch it, you're just like, wow, I can't believe how weird this is. So I have a possible 5 Eric Roberts. I'm going to go ahead and give this, oh God, yeah, you know, I'm going to say 1.5.
Oh, God. God, what am I going to give this?
That's what I was like. I almost gave it a 2, but I'm like, no, 1.5.
No.
A 2's too generous.
I don't even know if it's worth a 1. But but I'll give it a 1 simply because it's kind of just so out there that it's like a movie you've almost got to say that you have seen at least once in your life. You know, it's like, you know, just for cultural reference, it's like, oh yeah, I've seen Santa Claus versus the Devil. You know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's oh my goodness. Yes, I'll give it a 1.
It's almost paralyzing how bad it is.
Oh, I know. But my major complaint with it, apart from all the other stuff we talked about, is it is kind of just really dull. It's just dull, you know?
Yeah, because there's no really clear narrative. It's just a bunch of shit happening. There's no clear plot. You know, I mean, okay, yeah, the devil's supposed to corrupt the children, and Lupita wants a doll, but I mean, that's really kind of it.
Yes, yeah, it's it's a very simple story drawn out into an hour and a half.
Yeah, told in a very weird way.
I mean, but the thing too is that we have a narrator all the way through this movie, and I'd be fascinated to know whether the Spanish version had a narrator, or whether that's just something that comes with the with the English direction. Right.
That makes sense, because that is something that often gets inserted into dubs to like kind of help you out a little bit, so you know a little bit more about what's going on.
But the narrator too is a little bit like, oh, that'll teach that naughty devil. Oh, you know, it's like, oh God, you know. Oops, Santa nearly hit the moon. Phew, he made it. You know, it's like,
oh my gosh! Oh no! Yeah, no. Just no, people, don't do it.
Oh, dearie me.
Don't do it.
No.
If you want to see a movie that's Christmas themed that's so bad it's good, Santa Claus versus the Martians, or Conquers the Martians. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. Yes. That one is on my yearly playlist. When it's December, that's one of the movies that I definitely watch now.
This is not at that level.
No.
That has now become a cult classic. You know, people...
Yes, for good reason.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of TV networks around the world will actually play that on Christmas Day for fun. You know, it's
That's an excellent choice.
Well, the first time I ever saw that movie was on Christmas Day on TV.
That's fantastic. I love that. So, that's good.
Yeah, so no. Really, 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 really good. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No, Santa Claus versus the devil, I say pass.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. All right, well, we will take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
It's time to get excited, short film fans. It's mini movie review time.
Yes, it most definitely is. And what little offering have you found for us today, Velvet?
All right, our mini movie of the week is Monster. This is a Hindi language film by Pocket Films, and you can watch it on YouTube. And I will also link to their social media. I'll tweet out during the week where you can watch it. So it's a short film. It runs about 11 minutes, and it's a father and a daughter story. And you know they're up to something sinister, and you're like, but the daughter seems all about it. You're kind of like, oh man, this poor girl's brainwashed into this horrible situation. And you slowly find out what it is they're doing, and you're not quite sure where it's going. And then there's that little reveal twist, and I'm kind of like, I was like, I like this. At the same time, I'm kind of going, well, I guess that's how it would have to be if that's how things were. So I know I'm being very cryptic here, but what did you think about this short film, Warren?
Yeah, look, I quite liked it, and this is a difficult one to talk about without giving,
because we don't want to give it away. Right, right.
So I'll just put it this way: when it starts, what you think is happening is not going to be what's happening. So it'll take you down a slightly different direction, although not necessarily that far removed, but it will take you down a different direction. I suppose it has to, because in a sense, the way you think it's going at the start is a little bit too unbelievable.
Right.
So the way it goes actually then makes more sense.
Right.
So look, I quite liked it. This is a very different one to talk about. I think it's more really to give them a shout out and to let people go and see it. We'll give you all the details rather than maybe talk about it in depth, because it's...
I agree, because I don't want to spoil this one, because if you say the wrong thing, it's completely spoiled. This one you definitely have to see unspoiled to enjoy it. I can say this, at the very beginning, for half a second, I thought maybe that this girl had been abducted, but then you see she's totally on board with this plan that they have going on, and you're like, oh no.
Yes. No, I'd agree. It takes you... I'll just put it this way. I think we can say this. It takes you down a path originally where you think it's a film about abduction. You then quickly you think, oh no, it's a film about serial killers, and then suddenly, no, it's about something totally different.
Exactly.
And that's all I'll say. I'm not going to say anything more. So
I think that's enough to draw people in without spoiling it for them. Again, this runs about 11 minutes. The pacing on this is surprisingly quite nice, because even though we're not saying much, and also kind of not much happens, the acting of the little girl and the man in this, I think they have really good chemistry. It's very believable for the story. And at the end, even though this short runs about 11 minutes, I think about 2 minutes of those are actually end credits.
Yes.
So,
I know.
Just to give people a heads up. But it's very nicely shot. The camera detail is very clear, very high definition. And I really like this narrative.
Well, the other thing too I do like about... let's say, Indian short films, is that they're not like mainstream Indian films. There's no singing and dancing in them.
Yeah, there's no song and dance number. This is not Bollywood.
It's always been a problem that I've had with a lot of Indian movies, is that They can be doing a movie about a deadly serious situation. I mean, a
Mm-hmm.
really deadly serious drama, but they'll still break into song and dance. You know,
it's part of the culture.
Yeah, I know,
cinematic culture.
Now, I know it works in India and they love it and all the rest of it, so I'm not going to criticise it. I'm just saying, just that for me, it's just somehow it spoils what could be a really good. It's fine if it's a comedy. It's fine if it's a romance or something like that. It works. But when they do serious drama, that's when I just don't get it. You know, I don't get it. But
I think it's so. I mean, and to me, like, again, also, like, I don't want to criticize it either, but to me, it's always really funny when it's a really serious Indian film, and all of a sudden they just have that song and dance number. It's highly choreographed, the exuberant costumes, the makeup, the hair. It just it always makes me laugh. Even though they're nice song and dance numbers, I mean, they're really well done. It's just like, damn, this is a serious movie, and now it turned into like American Idol. And
I saw one about a year or so ago, and it was a very serious drama about a crime gang that was, I'm not too sure, in one of the Indian cities. I don't quite remember which one it was. And it was based on true events. It was actually based around this very serious crime gang, to which the police had actually formed a special task force to deal with them. But the problem was that the actual task force had, let's just say, stepped over their bounds a little bit. They'd become as violent as the criminal gang had. And apparently this was a real story, like from the 1990s or something. It was a real event that happened. So it's telling you the story of this real historical event, but it breaks into song and dance. Like they're in the police station, right? And the police are discussing what they're going to do to hunt down this gang. And suddenly they break into song and dance, and they're dancing around the fucking police station. It's like, I can't cope with it. It's just like...
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. Oh, my God. Yeah. So no song and dance number in this short film because it is a short film.
Yes.
It is in Hindi language. It has English captions burned in. So don't have to worry about the language barrier. And it's not a ton of captions, so it's not like there's so much and so fast that you can't read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this one. Definitely check it out. It's called Monster. It's by Pocket Films. You can follow them on Twitter at Pocket Films IN, as in India, Pocket Films IN, and tell them that Cult Movie Show sent you. I'll tweet out the link on our social media so you guys can watch it.
Oh, cool. Yes. No, that sounds great. All right. Well, we will take another quick break, and then we will be back with our second movie.
Oh, Santa, I've been waiting on you.
That's funny, kid, because I've been coming for you.
Oh, Santa, I've been killing just for fun.
Well, the party's over, kid, because I got a bullet in my gun.
A bullet in your what? Don't shoot me, Santa Claus. I've been a clean living boy. I promise you. Did every little thing you asked me to. I can't believe the things I'm going through. Don't shoot me, Santa Claus. No one else around believes me. But the children on the block, they tease me. And I couldn't let them off that easy. Oh, Santa, it's been a real hard year.
There just ain't no getting around this. Life is hard. But look at me. I turned out all right.
Hey, Santa, why don't we talk about it? Work it out.
Believe me, this ain't what I wanted. I love all you kids. You know that. Hell, I remember when you were just 10 years old playing out there in the desert, just waiting for a sip of that sweet Mojave rain.
In the sweet Mojave rain, the boy was on his own. Don't shoot me, Santa Claus. I've been a clean living boy. I promise you, did every little thing you asked me to. And I can't believe the things I'm going through. Hey, Santa Claus, no one else around believes me. But the children on the block, they tease me. And I couldn't let them off that easy. They had it coming, so why can't you see? I couldn't turn my cheek no longer. The sun is going down and Christmas is near. Just look the other way and I'll disappear forever. Don't shoot me, Santa Claus, when no one else around believes me. But the children on the street, they tease me. I couldn't let them off that easy. Believe me, Santa.
Well, we are back, and that was, of course, Don't Shoot Me, Santa by The Killers. Is that right, Velvet? The Killers?
That's right. Don't kill
Yes.
me, Santa, by
Don't
the
Kill Me,
Killers.
Santa.
I mean, don't shoot me. Excuse me.
Don't shoot me,
Santa.
Santa. Sorry. Yes. Don't shoot me, Santa.
I guess he will kill you if he shoots you. So
Well,
we're close.
I suppose, yeah, it's not... We spoke about Santa before with a hockey mask
You know,
and a
that
chainsaw.
makes sense. The modern Santa, instead of giving you a lump of coal, he just shoots you now if you're on the
Shoots
naughty
you.
list. He's just the Christmas assassin. There you go.
Oh, that'll
Gotta
lead
do
on.
this.
That'll lead on more to another film we're about to do, but not this film. So maybe.
Right.
But
Oh,
so
goodness.
we can go down that path shortly. But actually, but just before we do this film, something I forgot to say actually at the start, Velvet, is of course Boxing Day is coming up, and I know that Boxing Day is like a Commonwealth type day. I know it's not done in the United States
Right.
or in like mainland Europe and so forth. It's a British, Australian, Canadian, New Zealand, South African type
Right.
thing, right? But of course, the great tradition is the Doctor Who special, the Christmas special.
Oh, that's right.
And of course, this year we're only a day or so away from seeing the Doctor regenerate into, of course,
Oh, wow.
of course, Jodie Whittaker. Jodie Whittaker, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is going to be huge, and it looks like an amazing episode too, because
Oh, wow.
they've brought back the first Doctor. Now, of course, it's not actually William Hartnell, because William Hartnell died, obviously, quite a few years ago. But they used the actor that played William Hartnell in the TV adaptation of Time and Space. So, and they've actually used him to play the first Doctor. So we're going to actually get 3 Doctors in one episode. It's going to be...
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And it's just going to be great. I just want to see what Jodie Whittaker's first words are. That's just...
Oh, wow.
You know, the Doctor
Yeah.
always has a bit of a comment, it's like when they first regenerate. So it's going to be interesting to see what her first reaction or first comment is. So that'll be really interesting. So, yes, looking forward to that. So, but, of course, we are now talking about a movie from the United States from 1950. And I'll be honest with you, Vel, I thought this was a lot older than it actually is. But it is actually from 1950, and it is The Great Rupert, or also commonly known as A Christmas Wish. And this is an interesting film. This really is an interesting film. So a quick rundown of this. It starts off, now, who is the Great Rupert? Well, the Great Rupert is a dancing squirrel who seems to have no problems in understanding human speak, who dresses up in clothes, will dance, do a jig, do all sorts of things. But yes, it is a squirrel. And anyway, so we are introduced to the Great Rupert via his sort of, I don't know, handler, what do you want to call him? Owner?
A trainer. His trainer.
Right?
Yeah.
Who is a circus performer. And anyway, he's run out of money and no one will hire him. So he goes away and he releases the Great Rupert into a public park where he can run and be free with all the other squirrels. Well, of course, Rupert isn't like other squirrels, you know. Rupert's more like a person than he is a squirrel. So Rupert actually then goes back to the house that he lived with his trainer. Now, we'll be introduced to three characters who take over the lease of the property, which is one of them is the great Jimmy Durante. Yeah. Yeah, I know, yeah, you can do it. I can't do it. Yes. Hi, I'm Jimmy Durante.
That voice.
I know. And his wife and his daughter. His daughter is fully grown up, you know, like meant to be 21 or something like that.
Right.
Now, anyway, there is a family who owns the property, husband and wife, and they have a son who, of course, is about the same age as the daughter. So we get
I'm sorry, he's handsome, but he looks like he's in his 30s. He does not look like a young man. He looks like an adult.
Yes, it's a bit... Yeah, he probably does, actually, to be honest.
The casting's really bad on that.
So anyway, so they move into this house. And the Great Rupert now, of course, is living up in the ceiling of the house. Now,
he's got a stockpile of nuts so he can brave out the winter in the house.
That's right. And, of course, it's all set at Christmas time. Now, what happens is that the man who owns the property, he's got this kind of like, what is it? Like, it's not an inheritance, is it? It's like...
oh, no, he made an investment in a gold mine, and the gold mine finally struck.
So he's getting $1,500 a month.
Commission checks.
Oh, okay, which is coming through, which is a hell of a lot of money in 1950.
$1,500 a week. $1,500 a week.
Yeah.
And I looked online because I always want to know, okay, so $1,500 in 1950, today that would be $15,000 a week. $15,345.25. So we'll just say $15,000 a week. Woo!
That's
in commission checks.
So it's a lot of money. So he's actually quite well off anyway.
Right.
So what he does is he doesn't trust the banks because of the depression. And so he decides he's going to hide it in the floorboards. Well, of course, the problem is, this is where the Great Rupert is living. And the Great Rupert, after hearing the mother or wife of the poor family that's moved into the house next door, praying for help because they've got no money and all the rest of it. So he, of course, understands people and all the rest of it, so he gives them the money. He just throws the money out to them, and it comes showering down like rain. So, of course, this happens every week. She prays for money, and the Great Rupert hears her prayers and gives her the $1,500. So, of course, now this poor family has become super rich because they've got all this money. And they will start buying things up. But the other thing, too, about them is that they're a very good family, like they're good-hearted. And Jimmy Durante will give money away to the poor. Of a certain percentage that he gets, he gives to the poor. Also, what he does is, when he sees businesses which are, like, floundering, he invests in them to keep them on their feet. And then on top of that, so now he's even got extra money coming in because he's investing the money. Like, he's quite clever. And so they become super rich. Well, of course, they then come to the attention of the well, I was going to say the tax department, whatever America calls it.
We call it the Internal Revenue Services.
Yeah.
So the IRS, the FBI, and the local police.
Yes, decide that they need to investigate how he's getting all this money. So this is really where our story goes. The other thing too is that we've got this sort of relationship developing between the two children. But then there's a third party, so there's a love triangle in this as well, who's meant to be like a producer, entertainment producer. And
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And you think, of course, that the daughter is falling for him, but is she? Or is she using him? Is she really in love
I
with
think
the
she's
son?
totally using him.
So,
but not in an evil way, even though that sounds
that's right.
evil. But
and all of this will carry on until there's a great disaster that happens within their house, which is kind of caused by the Great Rupert, but what that disaster will do is to bring the families together to become the best of friends, and of course soon to be related. It's a kind of charming little story. It's a classic Christmas tale. I suppose, of, the idea of the, you've got the Scrooge character, which is like the wealthy man. You've got the nice person who's poor, where the poor are prepared to share and the rich aren't. I know life isn't that simple, but it's a classic sort of story, if you like. You've got the love interest. It's just your kind of classic Christmas tale, isn't it, really?
Yes, and this movie has a happy, super, super, super happy ending. Like everything just comes together all at once for the good of everybody. So It's very cute, very charming. I only discovered this movie earlier this year, and I was just instantly fell in love with it. I thought it was just so cute and such a funny story. I don't interpret Rupert giving the family money the same way you do. I think okay. So that's interesting. That I didn't think there would be more than one interpretation for this film, so that's interesting. It's hard for people to understand if you haven't seen the movie. Basically, this poor family is renting, basically, I guess, a one-bedroom apartment, but it's attached to the house next door. So for them, it's one level. The house they're attached to is multi-level, and the upstairs bedroom of the separate house that's attached to, as you've said before, Mr. Dingle is getting these commission checks. He cashes the money. He takes the money. He drills a hole in the floorboard in the wall that's connected to the apartment. But there's a space there. And he's like, this is perfect. I can put the money there, hide it there. Nobody will know I'm putting it there. And that's where Rupert lives. And so right when he's throwing the money in, Rupert's like, what's this crap? And just takes it and throws it out. And there is, like I said, you have to see the movie to understand the architecture. But the apartment next door, there's a broken window above them, and so the money comes flowing down through this hole in the window, and the family's like, oh my God, money from heaven, it's coming out of the sky. Yes. So when you see this, it's really just funny because you realize it's just a squirrel cleaning out his living space, because he's like, oh, can't eat that, that's not a nut, get out of here. And
okay, see, that's really interesting you say that. See, I actually saw it as the Rupert, because he understands people, that he was actually, he understands
you may be right.
what money is.
Right.
Like, Rupert's a very intelligent squirrel.
Right,
and,
you may be right.
And so he's taking it from the rich people, and he's like a Robin Hood.
In that you say that, I can totally see it that way too. So it's interesting. Watch the movie, people, and see which interpretation you gain from this. But it's very cute, and just this guy that is, thinks he's hiding this money has no idea that the squirrel is stealing it and giving it away or throwing it away, depending on how you look at it. He lives his life like clockwork. So it's every Thursday at 3:30 is when he starts putting the money in his secret hiding place, and that's when the family has learned that, okay, this is when we pray for the money and the money comes.
Yes, I know.
But it just makes me laugh. It's just so ludicrously funny. But I mean, really, if for any movie family, this is the best family it could ever happen to, because like you said, they make such good use of the money. If they go crazy at first and buy a bunch of stuff for themselves, but then they start spreading the wealth, which is really great. But I love Rupert, the little squirrel. they use a mixture of like stock footage squirrel, real squirrel, because they did actually have an animal trainer on set, and of course there is I always want to say claymation, stop motion animation squirrel.
Yeah.
Stop motion. The movie is originally in black and white. If you watch the movie, I highly recommend the black and white over the colorized version because it makes the squirrel look more realistic. In the colorized version, he looks a little more fake. But it's just so cute when you see him dancing, and there's a scene where Jimmy Durante is juggling, and like Rupert steals one of the nuts that he's juggling with and just messes up his juggling act, and he's like, "What the? Where'd the nut go? It came up, didn't come down." Like, it's really funny, and Jimmy Durante is really, in top form in this. He's singing, he's dancing, he always has his one-liner quips, just really silly jokes, and he's just such an interesting character. He just has that good screen presence. He always steals the show in every scene that he's in. Like, I really like that character.
Well, one of the funniest bits in it, I actually thought, was when a disaster happens, which I don't think it matters if you give it away. A fire breaks.
Oh yeah,
out
the movie's from 1950.
Yeah,
the movie's from 1950.
So a fire breaks out in the house because the Great Rupert has stolen a cigarette, and it sets the house on fire. And but anyway, when they're trying to clear all the stuff out of the house and they're running out with all their, chairs and, and all the rest of it, one of the things Jimmy Durante has bought for the house is this, it's a polar bear skin, with the head.
The polar bear rug.
People used to have those things, lions and tigers. Yeah, right.
Right.
And, I know they're horrible, but once again, 1950, so I'm not gonna.
Right.
But anyway, the head has been turned into a radio, and you adjust the radio by the teeth on the polar bear. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, right? But anyway, when they're clearing all the stuff out of the house, and the wife comes running out of the house, and she's wearing the rug, so all you see is this polar bear running out of the burning house. Is absolutely quite hilarious when you see it done.
It is very funny. There's a very cute Christmas scene where the Amendola, that's Jimmy Durante's family in this movie, Amendola family goes to visit their landlord/neighbors, the Dingles, and so they're having the whole conversation, singing together, playing music, and there's just a very funny scene that I can't really explain it. You have to see it, but just basically, Jimmy Durante is very entertaining, and so his neighbor's kind of like, "Can you teach me some tricks so I can be entertaining when I have guests over?" And just the way it goes is it's just a funny setup. It's just adds nothing to the story really. It's just really entertaining, really funny. Him trying to teach him to do this trick that is never going to happen. So you're kind of like, "Where's this going?"
I know.
I really like the music in this movie. Like I said, I like seeing Jimmy Durante playing the piano, singing, and then he has a couple of songs in here that he sings. And there's also a really pretty instrumental piece that they have the daughter from the one family and the son from the other family. They're playing just this, little instrumental piece. Was it called the duet of orphan instruments, something like that?
Yeah, a duet of twin instruments or something like that, I think. Yeah.
And it's a tuba is it a tuba? It's a tuba and a harp.
Yes.
Which you wouldn't think go together, but it's actually quite a pretty song. And the daughter actually uses her connections with this guy that wants to date her. She's not sleeping with him. She's a proper lady in the 1950s. She's just going on dates.
Yeah.
Right. Just going on, dates, and he's buying her presents and trying to woo her. And she's like, "Hey, do you know anybody that publishes music? I wrote a song." She didn't write the song. Peter, her neighbor, did. So, she's using that connection to get the song published.
Yes.
And then, the movie just has this super happy ending where all of a sudden everybody's rich, everybody's making money, the music's published, there's a new house. It's just all at once. Oh, and Rupert gets a job with the circus, and he becomes the top performer, and it's just it's
like the trainer that had to give up. Rupert gets a job in the circus, so he finds Rupert again. They go off. Rupert becomes the biggest star in America, right? The two families basically, become uber wealthy because they invest in an oil well and it comes back to pay. The song gets published, but everything. They're rich. It's just like,
It's just a super, super duper happy ending. I love it. I think it's so cute. It's so Christmas, like what you expect all Christmas movies to do, and they really don't. There's always just one piece of happiness, but this is like everybody's happy. Everything's going good for everybody. Very cute. And Rupert the Squirrel, like I said, the stop motion animation is pretty decent. When this movie originally came out in the 1950, people were asking where they can get a trained squirrel. Like they thought Rupert was real. They did not realize it was a stop motion squirrel. Because remember, special effects then weren't what they are now, so people couldn't spot it as easily as we can now. So they thought Rupert the Great really was great.
Well, it'd be imagine. I mean, you could almost remake this movie now because the story's kind of timeless. You know, and it deals with so many other kind of Christmas stories all rolled into one. You know, you've got the Scrooge element, you've got the poor family, you know, you've got the love interest of it. I mean, it all kind of, you know, it's been done 1,000 times before. But the thing that's kind of cool about this is it's all of them, all those stories thrown into one, which is, you know, which is really interesting. So you could do it now, and you imagine what you could do with Rupert now with CGI.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Like, it could go either way. It could be really good, or it could be like Scooby-Doo bad.
yes, it could go down that path, I suppose. It could go down that path. But I reckon this could be remade, to be honest. I don't think it'd... does the Hallmark Channel still exist, or is it?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it does. I'm not 100% sure
because I actually reckon this is Hallmark could remake this so well. They really
and you know
could.
what? This it wouldn't hurt for this movie to have a remake because, as you mentioned, it is a timeless story, but the visuals of this movie are extremely dated. First off, we have married couples sleeping in separate beds, which was very 1950s in America, and also just the whole concept of basically a three-person family living in what looks like, I keep saying it's a one-bedroom apartment, but it literally looks like a room. Yeah. It looks like a room, and they're sharing that space. So, I mean, that would be kind of weird. Even, you know, just the standard of living in America is so high that even poor people usually don't have to squeeze into one room. They're usually able to get a one-bedroom apartment, even with government assistance. So, yeah, the story's timeless, but the visuals are extremely dated. And also the whole concept of dating and marrying somebody you just met, and because this movie starts the day before Christmas, and then I'm not sure how long this movie actually goes. I guess it has to be a couple months, but just the way people interact now with each other is obviously quite different from the dynamic of the 50s. And also, this is a movie, so again, it's obviously not realistic relationships. They're movie relationships. Things do go faster in movies than in real life usually. But yeah, this wouldn't hurt to have a remake.
No, I reckon it would work, actually. I think it had to be made by the right people, though, you know.
Right.
But, because, I mean, I don't think you'd get a full on a Hollywood remake of this, but like I said, you know, that concept of Hallmark or someone like that, you know, that I could see.
Right.
You know, that I could definitely see. But I kind of quite enjoyed it, actually.
Oh, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. I only discovered it this year, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cute. I love this. I have to say again about the music. I do like the music in this, and what I like about the music in this is that the musical numbers, the performances, I feel are very well woven into the story. It's very organic. It's not everybody stop, drop, listen, we're doing a song right now. It just flows right in. It's never like, oh, here comes the song. It's just like all of a sudden Jimmy Durante's talking, and all of a sudden he's sitting at a piano and he starts singing and playing. It all really just flows in really nicely, and I love how they do that. But this is not what I would consider a musical, but it does have musical numbers.
No. But a lot of movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it wasn't unusual to have musical numbers thrown in. It's a bit like we were talking about Bollywood before. It wasn't that unusual. You look at all the Marx Brothers movies; they've all got musical numbers thrown in. And I think one of the reasons for a lot of this is that there was still the tradition of vaudeville that was alive. And so you would have, like vaudeville, you'd have an act, then a musical number, an act, a musical number. And so, they're not musicals, but it wasn't unusual to have a musical number thrown in. It was kind of quite usual. There's lots of movies of that period that are like that, you know, especially if they're lighthearted or they're comedies. You're not going to see it in a drama, but in a lighthearted film or a comedy, you'll see it. Yeah.
Right, and this family that starts out poor and ends up super duper rich actually is a vaudeville family, and vaudeville is fading out, and that's why they're having trouble finding work and they're falling on hard times because they weren't prepared for that transition. So yeah, you make a very good point about that. But, the name of the movie. It's originally it was known as The Great Rupert, and from what I've heard, it looks like this movie was shot maybe about 1948 or 1949, and then they renamed it A Christmas Wish, and they released it in 1950 around the holiday time, from what I've heard. So that's why this movie has two titles, so you'll find it under either title.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's the interesting thing, though, is that it's like Rupert really doesn't... he's so like the fact that you would name it the Great Rupert, but his role in this movie is tiny.
But he has such a big effect, exactly, and he has such a big effect because there's a big chunk of the movie where you don't see Rupert at all, and you kind of forget about him. Yeah, and then he pops up again. And you're like, oh, I love the box cover for A Christmas Wish. It shows the Amendola family, the poor family, just sitting in the living room, smiling at each other in front of a Christmas tree, and they have a picture of Rupert looking through the window in the background. And he's wearing one of his outfits. He wears a traditional Scottish kilt outfit when he dances. It's very cute.
He wears a kilt, a jumper, or what do you Americans call it?
We call it a kilt. We call it a kilt.
No, a jumper. You call it like a pullover.
Gotcha, right?
Gotcha. Yeah. And so it's not like a kilt, a pullover, and he's got the Scottish bonnet on. Right, and it's amazing because this squirrel is doing
his trainer is evidently
it's like yeah.
And his trainer has a Scottish accent, so that hints at where that's coming from. It's a very cute movie. I think it's really touching. I was happy to watch this again for us to review, and plus I was going to watch it either way just because it's added to my yearly playlist because I think this movie is so cute. When Rupert first gets released in the park, I'm kind of like, oh, that's terrible. But at the same time, I guess it's the right thing for the trainer to do. He's like, I can't get us a job in the circus. Here, go be free in the park. But yeah, Rupert hates it because he goes to get a nut and a squirrel steals it from him. Then a bird swoops down on him, and then a dog chases him up a tree, and he goes into the tree into a hole, and there's an owl in there, and he's just like, I'm getting out of here. Yes. And it's just funny to watch him run back to the house and climb up into the ceiling, and he's got a stockpile of nuts, and I'm like, oh, no wonder he wants to go back. He's got it made. He's got food and shelter. He's got food and shelter, so...
Oh, no, it's good fun. It really is good fun. And I kind of did fall in love with Rupert the squirrel.
I love Rupert the squirrel. I want a pet squirrel, but only if he's as smart as Rupert.
Yes. As long as he can understand what you're saying and dance.
As long as he can find money and just throw it at me. Just make it rain money in my house.
Yes. But that is interesting what you said, because when you watch it now, it's like, oh, it's $1,500, and you sort of think, well, $1,500 a week, that's kind of a weekly wage for, it's not...
not for the average American. Even now, that's still a lot of money for the average American. Oh, God, yeah.
What's the average?
Yeah, the average person over here earns about $500 a week, even now.
God, really?
Yeah, so $1,500 a week, that's life-changing for the majority of Americans, even now, in today's economic standards.
That's really interesting, but I think the average wage in Australia is about, once you take tax out, it's about $900 a week.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you guys have a really high standard of living. Now, for us, it's about $500 a week is amazing. If you're doing that, that's pretty good. I mean, that's good. Not awesome, but pretty good. But if you're earning $1,500 a week, that's life-changing money.
Although it has to be said, though, that you can live in the US a lot cheaper than you can live in Australia.
Fair enough.
Things for instance, rents are a lot more... for instance... An average house in Australia, I think, is $800,000. Mm-hmm. buy property in the US a lot cheaper than that.
It depends.
You
It
know?
depends on where you are.
Oh,
Because
no,
most
no,
of the
no.
places where property is cheap, you don't want to live there.
Yeah, but what I mean is, it's not like I'm just talking about an average middle class house. That's $800,000.
I see. Gotcha.
Food in Australia is about twice the price it is in the United States.
Okay.
Yeah, petrol, as Australians call it, or gas, as Americans call it.
Right.
It's about 3 times the price in Australia than
Yeah.
it is in the US.
And we pay per gallon, and it's cheaper
Yeah.
here compared for you guys. So, yeah, it's true. It's just but money is always very subjective. There's one person listening that's like, I earn $5,000 a week. What are you guys talking about?
That's exactly right.
And it's like, nice for you.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I'll tell you a story. I mean, I remember watching. It was one of these reality shows, right? And there was this guy was on the show, and he was offered a BMW 1 Series, a 118, which is the entry level BMW. Okay, so it's worth about $40,000, something like that, $38,000 US. And
Right.
and anyway, and I had all these friends who were saying, "He's trying to take it." And then I had these other friends who were sort of saying, "Oh, for fuck's sake, it's only a 1 Series BMW. Why would you want to take it?" Like, so so the thing is that
Right.
it so depends on where you are, you know, because
Right.
some people are going to be earning, I don't know, $30,000 a year. And they're going to sort of say, "Oh my God, a BMW 1 Series! I dream of that car."
Right, exactly.
Other people were sitting back, sort of saying, "Oh, that's the car I'd buy for my daughter for their first car." You know, because they're earning $200,000 a year. You know, so
Right.
it's so relative. You know, it's so yeah. So anyway, but I love the way Rupert moved his feet. The way the stop motion moved his feet when he actually did the jig, you know, it was so cool. Yeah,
It's so cute. It's very cute. I love this movie. I don't think I have much else to say, honestly. It's just a really cute movie, I wanted to introduce it to our audience for anybody who's looking for something a little more traditional that you may have not seen that has a happy ending, and it's very cute, very touching, and it's actually family appropriate. Very family appropriate. This is one of the few times I'm not like, well, I probably wouldn't let kids watch that, or I don't know if that's appropriate for kids. This is appropriate for all ages, which is very well done.
I think this was always designed as a family movie.
Absolutely.
This is a family Christmas movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and
most definitely.
It's this is also, I believe this movie's in public domain. I think it's in public domain. I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
So let me just say, if you want to find it for free, you should be able to. I just want to say that it's available in black and white, which is the original, and the colorized version. I highly recommend seeing this movie in black and white. It just Rupert the squirrel just looks better in black and white. He looks more believable. Whenever they colorize these black and white films, sometimes the colorization can just kind of take you out of the film because, it's all guesswork.
Yeah. I mean, I would say
guesswork.
any movie that's been colorized, even if the only version you can get is the color version, switch your TV to mono. To just black and white.
There you go. There you go.
Because it's the easy way to fix it. You know, if it is only available in color, because they don't work. I hate colorization of film. I really do.
Right.
I think it doesn't enhance anything. It doesn't make it better. It just makes it look. It makes it look worse. You know,
it almost looks like sometimes it looks kind of cartoony. Yeah, it's just
The other thing too is that cinematography for black and white filmmaking is different to cinematography for color. So if you colorize it like black and white film works far more with contrast and shadows and things like that color film doesn't require, because all the colors are there. So if you then go and colorize it, you're screwing up what they were trying to do in the first place. So it's just, I just think it's silly. Don't do it. Just, watch it in black and white.
Well said.
Yeah,
I have to agree. Well said. Yeah, definitely.
All right. So if we're going to rate the Great Rupert.
Okay, out of a possible 5 Eric Roberts, I'm going to go ahead and give this 4 squirrels.
4 squirrels. Well, I'm going to give it 4 nuts.
Well done.
I really liked it. Actually,
I like it a lot too.
I really liked it. The only thing I would criticise about it, and this has nothing to do with about the film, is that the version that you and I watched, Velvet, was. I would have liked to have seen a better quality print of it. Is the only
right. There are really good prints available of this.
Yeah.
There are HD black and white ones, which I highly recommend if you want to like add one to your collection. This one's definitely worth picking up in HD black and white because they've really cleaned it up. It's really clear. It's really beautiful. But there's some really bad prints out there that are, the contrast is too dark and it's a little bit blurry, and like then the sound quality might be a little fuzzy when you're listening. But there are high quality prints of The Great Rupert or A Christmas Wish available.
Yes. Excellent. All right. Well, we'll just take another quick musical break, and we'll be back with our final Christmas film, and I'm excited to talk about this one.
Me too, definitely.
So we shall be right back.
Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight with. Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight. Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight. Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight with you. Where is Santa and his sled? And tell me why is it always this way? Where is Rudolph? Where is Blitzen, baby? Merry Christmas, Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas. All the children are tucked in their beds. Sugar plum fairies dancing in their heads. Snowball fighting, it's so exciting, baby. I love you and you love me, and that's the way it's got to be. I knew it from the start, 'cause Christmas ain't the time for breaking each other's heart. Where is Santa and his sled? And tell me why is it always this way? Where is Rudolph? Where is Blitzen, baby? Merry Christmas, Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas. All the children are talking their beds. Sugar plum fairies dancing in their heads. Snowball fighting, so exciting, baby. Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I love you and you love me, and that's the way it's got to be. I knew it from the start, 'cause Christmas ain't the time for breaking each other's heart. Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight with. Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight with. Merry Christmas, I don't want to fight tonight with you.
Well, we are back, and that was, of course, the Ramones with, what is it again? Merry Christmas.
I don't want to fight tonight.
Yes! Yes. I just want to live in my own vomit in a drug-induced coma. I don't know.
Yuck.
I was just trying to make it more realistic to the Ramones. That was all.
It's like I don't want to fight tonight. I want to go sniff some glue. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
No, love the Ramones. Yeah. No, we reviewed Rock and Roll High School, so you guys need to check out that review.
They were a great rock band, though. I mean, they really were.
Yeah. It's really amazing they didn't achieve more success in their lifetime than they did. So, because they just short, catchy songs. I mean, what more do you need nowadays?
Their music
for some reason.
Their music is also used in tons of films. Have you noticed that?
Yes. Now it's licensed out like crazy. But yeah, it took them a long time to finally catch a ride on that train. Poor guys.
Yeah. Well,
worked their asses off.
The other thing is there's another movie, I've forgotten its name. It's set in New York about these two young teenage girls who are runaways. And they're living basically homeless in New York City. And the whole thing is set to the Ramones music.
Wow. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I've forgotten what it's called now, though. It's a very good film, actually. It's probably one we should look at doing at some stage.
Definitely. Let me know when you remember.
Yes. Yeah, my memory, though, that'll be 2023. You know, before I remember it. So, I know there'll be sometimes I've been sitting there. I wonder if it's the early dementia coming on or something.
Oh God, don't say that.
I'm sitting there and I'm sort of going, now, we did watch. What's it called again? We did watch the and someone will just be sitting there going, the television, Warren? Do you mean the television? Yes, that's it, the television.
I thought you were struggling to remember the name of a TV show or a movie.
No, it's not quite. I do exaggerate. It's not quite that bad.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
It's not quite that bad. But I must admit, this has actually been something I've had all my life, so it's not dementia. It's something I've had all my life. Is that half the time, it's like my long-term memory is exceptional, but my short-term memory is shit. It is
my short-term memory
terrible.
is horrendous when I'm hungry. Like literally I can remember nothing if I'm hungry, except for long-term. Short-term, I'm horrendous when have to eat. I cannot starve.
It's amazing. I can start talking about the heretical history of the kings and queens of England. All right, and I can start naming them all and the different families and the Plantagenets and all this other stuff. But if someone sort of asked me about what somebody did yesterday and I can't remember, it's just no. It's really weird. It's really weird. Anyway, we are not talking about Warren's memory, although that's a topic for another podcast, I guess. It'd just be silence, wouldn't it? Warren's short-term memory, an hour and a half of dead air. So anyway, we are talking about. Look, I think this is a wonderful Christmas movie, but not necessarily one for the whole family.
Oh no, definitely not for the whole family.
unless the kids are over about 15, something like that, 14. I suppose.
This movie is actually PG-13 rated, which is surprising because for me, most movies that are PG-13, I'm just like, ooh, yuck. It's usually cookie cutter. It's usually boring to me. It's usually not something I enjoy. But this movie, since it's PG-13 rated, at least in the United States, that means it's appropriate for ages 13 and up. But parental discretion. So
yes. So it is a horror comedy. Is the best description of it, and it is of course Krampus from 2015. Now, not to be confused with Krampus from 2013, which I haven't seen. But I don't know if that is or isn't an American movie. I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not 100% sure either, because there are quite a few Krampus now. No, Krampus movies now. And quite a few Krampus movies now. And it was funny, because at one point we were kind of like, okay, which one are we going to review?
Well, I had to call you, didn't I? I sort of said, Velvet, hang on, which one did we say we would do it again?
Yeah, but there are a ton of Krampus movies now. I mean, really, I guess the first one that got it started, to introduce audiences, I thought it was this one, but I think actually you were right. The 2013 Krampus, the Christmas Devil, was, I think, the first Krampus movie to be introduced to a non-European audience. But from what I can tell, I think we made the right choice, because that one is rated horribly on average. It's a Krampus, the Christmas Devil, but it was rated horribly, the one from 2013. Whereas this one, where we're reviewing today, sounds like it was the better choice. This is Krampus from 2015.
And the other thing to say about this, even though it's a horror, it is. Well, it's actually a bit like you said. It's almost like a children's horror. It's not. There's no blood and guts or anything like that. It's quite funny. It really is in many places.
There are funny bits. Yes, there are funny bits. At the same time, for a PG-13 movie, I thought this was actually pretty scary. Not jump out of my skin scary, but I didn't have a couple of jump scares. But again, I'm easy to jump scare. That's not saying much. But I mean, just the overall visuals and the concepts and the other stuff that happens that we'll get into, I'm like, wow, for a PG-13 horror movie, a Christmas-themed horror movie, this is actually pretty scary. Pretty well done.
Well, it's not like the other movie was. Is it Christmas a Horror Story? What was the one we did last year?
A Christmas horror story.
A Christmas horror story.
Christmas horror story.
Now that film is actually very violent. There's a lot of blood and gore.
That's straight horror.
Very violent.
Straight horror. Yeah.
Although it's still marketed as a comedy horror, because there is actually a lot of humour in it. I mean, William Shatner is actually kind of funny in it, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
But this one is a full-blown comedy horror, a bit like Jack Frost. Now, I'm not talking about the Michael Keaton version of Jack Frost. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the actual comedy horror one where the snowman starts killing everybody in the small country town. It's fucking hilarious. It's an hilarious film. Have you seen it, Velvet?
I haven't. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't seen it. And yeah, maybe we'll do that one next year.
Next year, yeah, it's very well. They made a Santa Claus 2 where Santa Claus goes on vacation in the Bahamas. I think it was or something.
Oh my goodness gracious!
But anyway, not Santa Claus. Sorry, the snowman goes on holidays.
Okay, I was wondering. Oh well,
Yeah.
wow, that's really weird.
Yeah, I know.
Snowman in the Bahamas. Oh my god.
I don't know if that is the plot. I'm trying to remember. It's been years since I've seen it.
I don't know.
But anyway, we are talking about Krampus, and so of course, what is Krampus? Well, actually, before we even do the movie, should we explain what the Krampus is to anyone that doesn't know?
For a non-European audience, this is still a relatively new thing. Even a year later, we're talking about Krampus again because we talked about Krampus last year. But even now, this year, like a whole slew of Krampus movies, like a lot of them are straight to DVD came out. So, I mean, this is really starting to populate the pop culture of Christmas.
So, would you like to explain what the Krampus is, as in the
Sure.
actual creature?
Sure, I'll go for this. So Krampus, sometimes you'll hear a Krampus. So it seems like it centers mostly around, it seems like German lore, but I think it's honestly in a lot of European cultures, not just Germany or Austria, Switzerland. We actually have a character in the movie that speaks German, so they want to show you that she is actually originally from Austria, Vienna, Switzerland. Or, shit, I forgot where she's from. Austria, excuse me. Austria. Yeah, thank you. And so they want to tie that into the movie that she knows about this creature because she comes from a country where it was common knowledge, it was prevalent. But long story short, he's kind of an anti-Santa Claus. In this movie, it kind of gives you the theory that he's actually just a different side of Santa Claus. He's the evil side of Santa Claus. I mean, there's a lot of interpretations that can go to this movie. But long story short, we'll just say that Krampus is basically the evil spirit of Christmas that comes to punish naughty children. So when you lose hope, when you lose the spirit of Christmas, he comes to punish you. So how does he punish you? So in old lore, he would actually take naughty children and put them in a bag, kind of like a toy bag, and take them away. So this movie does kind of play with that a little bit, but there's a whole other stuff that happens that I honestly didn't expect. I actually hadn't seen this before, so I was like, "Oh my goodness!" So yeah,
there seem to be. I mean, you're quite right. In the Krampus, the stories come from the Alpine region of Europe. So that's Germany, Switzerland, Austria, also northern Italy. It's quite prevalent there. But also through into the Balkans, into parts of Poland, the Czech Republic. So it's all that part of what you would call, sort of Germanic to Central Europe is sort of where it is.
Okay.
Yeah. And, so the idea was that, of course, but there were two types of punishment, though, Velvet, is the Krampus wouldn't necessarily steal you away. It depends on how bad you were. The Krampus might just whip you.
Oh God!
Could be one punishment, but he would whip you with chains, and that's why one of the reasons why we see the chains in this movie. But the other thing too is that if you were really bad, yes, he would steal you away. And the Krampus is sort of meant to be this sort of half goat, half human type creature. And the interesting thing too about that part of the world is that the Krampus is actually part of Christmas. In other words, you don't want the Krampus to come, but the Krampus is just as real as St. Nicholas is. Like, St. Nicholas is the good side of Christmas, and the Krampus is the bad side of Christmas. So, and it depends on how you've lived your life through the year to who comes to visit you. That's meant to be the whole idea. So, so instead of the idea of, kids getting presents or coal, in that sort of part of the world, it's like either Santa Claus is going to come down your chimney or the Krampus is going to come down your chimney, so you better watch out. So, no, but it goes back in tradition. It's a great way to try to get kids to behave. If you don't behave, the Krampus is going to come for you, you know.
That would have worked for me. That would have scared me into submission.
No, it's a bit like we've spoken about the bunyip from Australia, the mythical animal from Australia. Well, it's believed that it was brought up for exactly the same reason, and that was that original Australians didn't want young children who couldn't swim to play by the water's edge, right? Because they could fall in and drown. So the idea was that they would tell them that there was this creature that lived in the water that grabbed children so the kids wouldn't go near the water. So they sort of believe that that's how a lot of this stuff starts. So that sort of made sense. Anyway, enough of the history lesson. We shouldn't be talking about that.
Okay, so in other words, if you're bad, Krampus is going to come get you.
Yes, that's exactly right. So basically, our film, Krampus, so it deals with a family which is kind of quite divided. You've got two sisters, and the first sister is doing extremely well. They're
Toni Collette.
Toni Collette, yes, my girl from Australia, is doing extremely well with her side of the family. They're upper middle. I won't say they're rich, but they're upper middle class.
Definitely.
They're doing extremely well. But her sister, not so well. Married a guy
white trash.
Kind of, is what we'll say, right?
I'll say it for you.
Yeah. And, but anyway, Toni Collette, the man that she married is of this Austrian descent. So the grandmother lives with them. And so, of course, she spends most of the movie speaking in German, which is a nice connection back to the original story.
Yes.
I suppose in a way that, like when the Americans do Godzilla, they try to link it back to Japan. But she does do a big speech in English at one stage. So anyway, they're spending Christmas together. And a lot of things go wrong. They're in this typical situation that families find themselves in today with modern Christmas. It's all too hard. They're all too busy. It's costing too much money. Work won't let them have time off. They need to do this. And the whole idea is that the Christmas spirit is being lost. And so our young son of Toni Collette, instead of sending his letter to Santa, he rips it up and decides he doesn't want to have anything to do with Christmas. And, of course, Krampus hears his call and comes a-visiting. And that's really where our story comes. And then, of course, the horror element of this is that basically they are in lockdown in the house while the Krampus is trying to steal them all and put them into the sack and take them away. Basically take them away to Hades is what they say in this movie.
Right,
So, and of course it's about them trying to survive from the Krampus. It's also about them trying to fight back to try to stop the Krampus and the various different assistants that the Krampus has. And has a very interesting ending, this film, which I won't say what it is, but doesn't necessarily end the way you think it would end.
No.
That's just one thing I will say. So, what did you think about the movie?
I really enjoyed this movie. Also, adding it to my yearly playlist. My Christmas playlist is so huge now. It's like I basically almost have 30 movies. So I'm going to have 30 days of Christmas next year when I start loading up my playlist.
You'll have to start in October.
Because I try to watch one every day, and sometimes you can't. So yeah, but I really love the way this was shot. It does have that PG-13 feeling to it. So like you said, there's pretty much no blood or gore, but there are jump scares and there are just really scary looking creatures in this. I think they did a fantastic job with the soundtrack on this movie. The music is very good at fitting the atmosphere, building tension, and even the sound effects I found to be really good. So, I mean, this is a really high quality horror, Christmas horror movie. The comedy, I like it. You do need that comic relief, but sometimes it takes me out of the movie a little bit. It's just a little too cheesy, but then again, it's also PG-13, so that's to be expected. I absolutely love the use of German language in this movie to establish that Krampus comes from Western European folklore. And I also love the casting of the grandma. They call her Omi, which is a nickname for Oma, which is German for grandma.
Yep.
So I like that they paid attention to detail on this. Krista Stadler is our Austrian-born character, and she's also Austrian in real life. So I like that they got a native speaker of German for this film, because that'll take you out of a movie so fast when somebody's speaking a foreign language the majority of the time and it's not convincing. So you don't have to get a native speaker, but get a good speaker. In this case, they went with a native speaker. I think that was a good choice. I like the whole connection of, because you see this family dynamic where the grandchildren understand what the grandparent is saying in their native language, but the child doesn't speak it. So it was an interesting, they had that whole kind of interpretation. Every once in a while, there were a few captions to go with the German language, but I think that's really well fit in there really nicely. Even the family name, Engel, which is German for angel, was an interesting nod to that ancestry. So really well done, because sometimes they just throw this kind of stuff into movies and they just don't give it that much attention to detail, and it just ruins the whole movie, for me at least. But the kids, man, I can relate to the kids in this movie because they hated family gatherings. They're being forced to go visit relatives they don't really know that well, don't really care about, don't really want to hang around, and nobody really wants to be there. Everybody just feels obligated because it's family and it's a holiday, and a lot of us can relate to these type of situations. I just really found the characters in this movie quite relatable, even the bullies, because I was never much of a bully, but we've all had those family members that you're just like, oh. But the father mentions that he was an Eagle Scout, so he talks about survival training, and then you also have the brother-in-law who talks gun talk. So there's really good, not so subtle foreshadowing that they're going to need those survival skills to protect their families and each other. But I have to admit, these were some of the worst relatives ever. They were so rude, so ungrateful. Toni Collette has cooked this humongous dinner, and she has the bitchiest aunt on the planet who's complaining about the food, and then the brother-in-law is complaining that the food's dry, and just rude ass people.
Well, you know who they reminded me of? You know all the vacation movies with Chevy Chase? Do you remember those?
Yes,
and remember the sister's family? Like these redneck hicks sort of thing, and they always seem to come together in every except for the European vacation one, but all the others, they came together, and it reminded me so much of that. In fact, if you actually remember, what is it, Christmas Vacation, the one they did, National Lampoon.
Yes.
The gathering of the families in that is almost identical to this film. You know, it's almost identical.
So really nobody's having a good time, nobody wants to be there, but they all have that just societal obligation to spend time with your family on the holidays. And they even mention this, they're just like, the father's like, well, they're family, this is what you do, when the son's like, why do we have to hang out with these people?
I know it's although it is interesting that the families will start to be drawn together as it as like this sort of survival scenario, sort of starts to take place. The only thing I have to say about this movie is that as people start to be taken by the Krampus, there's no sense of loss. Like, the family don't seem to really be in quite as much shock as you would think that they would be having their children taken by the Krampus. That's the only
I think they think they're going to be able to get them back, is my thing. I think they're still in denial that they're going to be able to get their children back, but I totally agree. I thought they would be much more upset, but I think they really believe they're going to be able to get their children back, so that's why they haven't hit that level of loss yet. That's the only way I can excuse it. But I agree that it was very underplayed in those situations.
Because in a sense, we have the scene with when, like, Toni Collette has lost her daughter. She then sees her nephew get taken by the Krampus. And she seems to kind of be still all okay with it. She's in total control until she sees a talking gingerbread man, and then she loses it. It's like she's more shocked by a talking gingerbread man than she actually is by the loss of her own child. It just seems...
I think her brain just couldn't process what was going on. She's like, did I really see that, or am I losing my mind?
Yeah.
That's a great scene, by the way, that... all the family members are snowed in this house. They can't go out. All the electricity's out. There's no heat, so they're sleeping in front of the fire. The fire goes out in the fireplace, and so Krampus, or one of Krampus's henchmen, dangles little hook, chains with a hook on it, and there's a gingerbread man hanging off it, and of course the little fat boy wakes up and it's like, gingerbread. Walks over and grabs a bites a chunk out of the gingerbread's head, and the gingerbread cookie starts screaming, and then of course they pull him up the chimney on the chain, and it's funny and it's a creepy scene at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting mix of comedy in this movie. Sometimes, like I said, it was kind of cheesy, when the little gingerbread cookie's screaming. And so it's kind of funny, but at the same time you're like, oh shit, we're laughing now, but they're going to take this kid and this kid's probably not going to come back.
Well, it's the other thing too that's a little bit weird about it is that my family's half Swiss, right? So, is that I am a little bit confused. I mean, I think they've changed this a bit, or maybe it's just that what everyone is taught, when they're growing up, changes or varies or whatever. Is that the Krampus comes for everybody in the town, right? Because of one child's wish to end Christmas. Now, that doesn't seem right to me. To my understanding, the Krampus would come for the child. The Krampus wouldn't come for everybody in the town.
I think you're right about that. That's something I think they definitely made up for the movie. Yeah, I think you're right about that.
That's the only thing which is I thought was wrong, although I stand to be corrected. People, if you know more about the subject, let us know.
Right.
But I did think that was maybe incorrect. But yeah, yeah.
I agree 100%. No, I agree 100%. But I did love the way they did that this whole town gets snowed in and it's devastating. You can't see anything. It's just that white blindness. And then so they're looking out their windows using binoculars, looking out the windows of their houses using binoculars, and there are some really creepy snowmen that evidently symbolize that Krampus is coming or Krampus is nearby, because I was waiting for those snowmen to come alive and grab somebody.
Yeah, I guess would too, yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. I could be totally wrong on this, but the little boy that got pulled up the chimney because he got tempted by the evil gingerbread man cookie, I think he got turned into one of the snowmen, because all of a sudden there was an extra snowman there, and I think it kind of had his face. I could be reading too much into that, but I think he actually got turned into one of those snowmen. So maybe those were supposed to symbolize lost souls or just dead people. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. Yep, actually, that's a good point. They might actually represent everyone that's been taken. Hence why the amount of snow people or snowmen keep growing. Right? It surrounds the house. Because as the other people in the town, the UPS driver gets taken, the snowplow driver gets taken, the boyfriend gets taken of the young daughter. Although we don't see any of that happen. It's just... implied that they've been taken.
That's the magic of PG-13.
Yes. So it could actually be that yes, every snow person or snowman represents one of the town folk that's been taken. Is quite possible. I mean, I don't really know. The only thing that also is a bit strange about this is that they're meant to be in a town. Is that right? They're not meant to be in the suburbs. Is that right?
Yeah, I got the impression it was supposed to be a town too.
And to me, it's a little bit there's got to be more than 20 people in this town. So where's everybody else? That was something that I thought was maybe but then again, hey, it's just a movie,
Exactly. It's really easy for you and me to go too in depth and overanalyze. It's but why this? But why that? But then, like you said, it has to be a movie, because at one point I even found myself wondering, okay, these are obviously American-based family, North America, United States, most likely. I was where are they in the United States? And I'm they're nowhere. It's a movie.
That's right. They're just meant to be in the northern area of the United States. Exactly
right,
where
somewhere
they
where
are.
It snows a lot.
That's
exactly.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's actually meant to be a particular place.
Exactly. And this movie, from what I read, 95% of this movie was actually shot on a sound stage. And I was like, oh, wow. So it wasn't even like shot at a real house. It was like, stuff set up to look like a house. And then on top of that, I thought this was just a fun little fact, because there's a ton of snow in the movie. The snow was actually made out of the stuffing they used to make diapers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So fun fact for you there, people.
Wow. Well, I suppose the other thing, too, of all of the various different Santa or St. Nicholas kind of assistants / nemesis / whatever you want to call them that there are around the world, I think Krampus is one of the more interesting ones. I mean, God forbid we don't talk about what the bloody Dutch do at Christmas with their assistant to Santa. We don't need to go down that. I know the Dutch think it's totally fine, and they have no problem with it. The rest of the world just face palms and goes, "Oh my God, seriously!" Apparently, because we're talking about, of course, about Black Pete. So and of course the Dutch all wear black. They wear blackface, at Christmas for parties and things like that.
Right.
Black Pete was meant to be Santa's assistant in the Netherlands. But of course, it dates back to slavery and all sorts of horrible things. But anyway, they don't see it that way. They see it as totally fine. And I've heard some funny stories that apparently in Afghanistan, right, because there's a whole United Nations was in Afghanistan and stuff, that at Christmas time, the Americans especially were freaked out by Dutch soldiers. They could not understand them because they're all walking around in blackface. And that is, and of course, to an American, that is so offensive, to wear blackface. And apparently, it just got to the stage in the end. It's a little bit like, oh, they're just the Dutch. Just deal with it. They're just the Dutch. Which is. But the other interesting one too that I'm fascinated about, I wish someone would do a movie about, is the Scandinavian one of the Nissie. Or the Nessie, and which is, of course, like a little goblin or elf or some sort of thing, who around Christmas time you have to feed and look after, like leave gifts for. Otherwise, he gets very, very mischievous and starts to kill the livestock and starts to maybe burns down your barn or kidnaps one of your children or something like that. Yeah, so there's another like Christmas sort of anti-Santa Claus one as well. I wish someone to make a movie about that. I reckon that'd be really...
that sounds really interesting.
Maybe the Swedes or the Norwegians or the Finns have. I don't know. I'd be interested to find out. If anyone knows, let us know. So, yeah.
Right.
So, but Krampus is definitely one of my favourites because he's kind of so cool.
And what I like right now from what I've seen is like it's becoming a standardized interpretation where they're showing kind of like this humanoid goat person. But in this movie, what's interesting, this current iteration of Krampus is that he's actually wearing a mask that is it's kind of like a scary Santa mask. So we don't even actually get to see what his face is underneath. But the mask itself is pretty horrifying because it's just this gaping mouth with teeth. And at first I thought he didn't have any eyes, just like big black holes. But at one point in the movie, they zoom in on his face and you can see, he's actually wearing kind of like a mask. And you can see his eyes underneath. And they're not human eyes. They're they're freaky. They're very freaky. So I like right now it's still kind of open to interpretation what Krampus looks like in movies, although it's becoming standardized. It's starting to become kind of like that human goat pan type hybrid. But this movie does a great, super slow reveal of Krampus because he has a ton of minions that we get introduced to that are all equally freaky, but we don't actually see Krampus himself until an hour and 17 minutes into the movie. So it's a very effective reveal. I never once found myself going, when are they going to show Krampus? When are they going to show Krampus? Because they kept showing us all this other great stuff. Like there's the demonic Jack-in-the-Box. There's the treetop angel that'll bite your face off. There's the demonic teddy bear. There's even a toy robot that starts like trying to kill them. Like all these great minions of Krampus. They're all these just like crazy demonic toys, basically, or Christmas-themed objects.
And I love it, too, when they get raided through the window. All these people come charging in through the window, and the grandmother goes, "Oh, no, it's the elves."
Oh God, yeah.
But what I loved about it is the whole idea. Just because Santa has elves doesn't actually mean that Krampus can't as well. Like, both of them have got elves. It's just that there are good elves and there are bad elves. Like, it's really... I really love that. And the other thing, too, that's interesting is that they play with the idea, too, that the current version of Santa Claus is not the real Santa. Did you notice that at the start? Because they start talking about, it's just an invention of Coca-Cola.
Okay.
Which
you're right.
Which they actually mention.
You're right.
And it is interesting, too, that they don't play with that idea of the modern Santa. They play more with the idea of the traditional St. Nick.
Yes, you're right.
You know, where obviously all this sort of comes from, you know, because the modern day Santa is, there's just Santa who lives at the North Pole. It's very different to like this, you know, wandering saint who gives out presents. You know, it's a very different concept.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very, very different concept. So, no, great movie, though. Actually, I really enjoyed this one.
I did too. I wanted to see it right when it came out, when it was actually in theaters back in 2015, and I just never got around to watching it. And I didn't watch it last year, and I meant to. And then finally this year, it's like, you suggested it. I'm like, oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And I didn't expect to like this as much as I did. I was really surprised, because once I found out it was PG-13, I'm like, oh, it's going to be awful.
Yes.
I'm very prejudiced against PG-13 movies, and I love it when I get proven wrong, like I did by Krampus. Toni Collette, we have to mention again. She is amazing in this as always. She's just a really convincing actor, just has great range. She's really great, can do comedy, can do drama, and now we know she can do horror as well. I would love to see her in more horror films because she has great, she's good at emoting. There was some nice product placement for Hummer SUVs, the big vehicles. That was practically a commercial for one until it got like destroyed.
Yes, the Hummer can go anywhere, but it can't deal with a Krampus.
Cannot deal with a Krampus. Hey, it's got to have its limitations. The character of Omi, our grandmother that knows about Krampus, I thought she was an interesting character because she's experienced Krampus before. So this poor woman experiences Krampus twice in her lifetime, and she's just great expedition narrative for letting you know what's going on. There's a really lovely animated segment when she talks about the first time she encountered the Krampus and how tragic that was. And I love the shift from from actual filming people to kind of like this animated segment that almost looks like stop motion animation. It's really nicely done and just tells the story of, you know, how she learned to fear Krampus around Christmas. And it's a shame that she didn't do a better job of preventing him from coming back. Like, she should have been all about Christmas cheer, and she should have just gotten everybody drunk, including the children. The one time I'll condone underage drinking, just to keep everybody merry and keep this thing from coming to get this family.
You would kind of think that if you'd experienced the Krampus as a child, once you'd had your own family, you might then think that you might instill in them that there is this, you know, this could happen. So you've actually got to, I mean, that was she just kind of lets it run and doesn't really worry about it, which I thought was a bit weird.
Yeah, that was a shame. I was like, also, I guess at the same time, like, obviously it's a movie, so don't take me too literally, people. But at the same time, if you had been in that position, that's one of those events that it is so beyond the scope of comprehension that if she told anybody, oh, the Christmas demon killed my parents and left me, they would just think she's nuts. So it's kind of like, true. I guess there really wasn't much she could do. She did really try to instill Christmas spirit in her grandson. She was all about, make sure you write your letter to Santa. Make sure you write your letter to Santa. Did you finish it? Oh, you should do it. You know, Santa Claus is what you believe and how you feel. It's not about marketing and Coca-Cola. But yeah, I really like the story though. And I think they did a really good job of using the grandmother for exposition to explain a little bit more about the Krampus and why she knows about the Krampus. So
but once again, I will bring this up as a fault, but is that the older daughter had already given up on Christmas years ago. Why didn't the Krampus come 4 years earlier? Do you know what I mean?
I agree, and I agree, because also my thing was, okay, as much as this family sucked, I was like, surely there's worse families that would summon Krampus than this one. But I guess what happened was, like any kind of mythical creature, there's a summoning that you have to do to make it come. So it's not enough to just lose faith. But he actually even said he wanted his family to go away, and he ripped up his letter to Santa and threw it into the wind. So I guess he like unknowingly completed a ritual to summon Krampus. Is the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. So yes, the daughter had given up, but she hadn't made a wish, or she hadn't actually done so. She'd just like given up, So so that wasn't enough to bring the Krampus. You actually had to summon the Krampus, which is what the youngest son actually unknowingly did. So.
And what the grandmother did too, now that I think about it, because she'd become just disgusted with the people in her village, and she was sick of all the sadness and the poverty and the loss, and she just wanted them all to go away, and she threw her Santa doll in the fire, and that summoned Krampus. So you can unintentionally summon Krampus. So be careful, people, when you get angry. Don't rip up your Christmas letters, don't throw your Santa dolls on the fire, or Krampus is going to come get you and everybody else.
The only thing you have to sort of say is that when you look at, like, when they tell the story of her youth, when she's meant to be a child, it's meant to be in the last days of the Second World War. You can see she's living in the bombed out buildings and all the rest of it, right? There's no food, there's people fighting for food and stuff like that. And you'd sort of think, holy, you would think there'd be bigger problems,
exactly. No, so this wasn't just about Christmas spirit. This was about hope, and she had lost all hope, and losing hope summons Krampus. So I can understand her accidentally summoning.
You're quite right.
Thank you. I can see her accidentally summoning Krampus. I don't see why the little boy accidentally summoned Krampus, because I don't feel like he lost hope. I just felt like he lost Christmas spirit. But I guess I don't know.
Now, the other thing too is that, although you're 100%, I totally missed that bit about actually the difference between. You're 100% correct on that. I totally missed that, actually. So, but the interesting thing too is the ending. Now, we won't give away the ending, okay? But I just want to get your feelings. Do you think it went down the right path, or do you think it shouldn't have gone there?
Oh, I absolutely love that ending. That's one of the things that redeemed this PG-13 movie for me, because I did like the movie, but I was expecting it to have a generic happy ending. And let's just say maybe this movie had a happy ending, maybe it didn't. But I love what they did. I love what they did. And I love the overall visual. I love that the movie actually leaves me thinking about it, trying to figure out that ending. I don't think it's a confusing ending. I think it's open for interpretation. And I love that. I love the way they did that.
I think it's, I don't think it's confusing at all. I think it's like, we can't really talk about it because we don't give it away. But
right.
But I think it's pretty clear when you see the reactions on all the actors' face when a certain thing happens. I don't think that leaves anything to interpretation. I
agree. There's some fan theories on this movie about the ending, which is interesting to read up on. So after you watch the movie, definitely go check out some of the fan theories, because they do get you thinking. But I agree with you. I know where you're going with this, and I agree with you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I think it was pretty clear and straightforward. Sort of thing. The special effects are excellent in this too, I must admit.
Yes.
Although you would expect for, a mainstream film from 2015, you would expect them to be pretty good.
Right.
But they are very good. They're very believable. They don't
and the sound effects are really good too.
Yeah. Nothing looks cheesy or rubbishy. It all looks very good, very believable. The costuming is fantastic. And I must admit, and once again, Toni Collette, it's like, why? I do not understand sometimes why, like you talk about the biggest actresses, let's say from Australia, people talk about Nicole Kidman, or what is it, Margot Robbie, and people like that. I do not understand why she hasn't got to that level, because I reckon she's 100 times better than any of them as an actor.
She really is. She really is. She just doesn't have although she has a mainstream career, she doesn't have that same mainstream appeal that those bigger stars do. And I hate to sound shallow, but I think it's based on looks. Hollywood's a very shallow money-making machine, and I love Toni Collette, but I think just by their cookie-cutter standards, I don't think she quite fits what they consider beautiful. I think she's beautiful, but I think she doesn't fit their little checklist that they have.
I agree with you in what you're saying. The only thing is, from my perspective, I think that she's 1,000 times better looking than Nicole Kidman.
I agree.
Just personally,
I agree. But Nicole Kidman looks cookie cutter, whereas Toni Collette does not. But Hollywood wants cookie cutter most of the time.
And being married to Tom Cruise at one stage probably didn't hurt.
Yes, that'll definitely bump up your career. If you're acting and married to Tom Cruise, that will definitely help. Also helps if you have talent, which Nicole Kidman has talent. She's not a bad actress. She's
a good actress, but I don't think she's as good as maybe she's
Toni
good,
Collette.
To be honest. Although it is interesting that Toni Collette she was brought up through the theatre, right? Mm-hmm. So. And I think that has a lot to do with it. You look at all actors where their origins are in theatre rather than in television or in movies is where they start. And I'll lay like London to a brick, anything, that the ones brought up through the theatre are better actors.
That makes sense. That seems to be the case. Yeah, it just gives them better range, better emoting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, this whole movie was very well cast, to be honest. The only one that I thought maybe his acting was just a tiny touch spotty sometimes was actually the main boy, MJ Anthony, who plays Max, the one that accidentally summons Krampus. But for the most part, I felt they really represent the classic all-American family, the one that's the upper middle class, and then you got kind of the white trash family members that crash in. And
yes.
It was very well cast. Even David Kushner, which he's known for doing what we call redneck humor. He was very well cast in this as the gun-toting good old boy American. Yeah.
He's really most of the comic one-liners actually came from him.
Yes, and he is an actual comedian, which makes sense. Yes, makes sense. I don't know how much he was allowed to ad-lib. I don't know how much he was allowed to ad-lib in this movie, but I wouldn't doubt it if he did. But very well cast, actually. I love the ending. We don't want to give it away on here since this movie's it's a couple of years old, but still relatively new for some people, and it's worth checking out and see how you interpret the ending. But I really liked it.
Oh, look, me too. I don't really want to fault it. Apart from some of the things I spoke about where it doesn't kind of make sense, and so. But like we said, it's a movie. You've got to have some license.
Yes. There's a scene where the young boy Max is trying to drive a snowmobile to get away, and I was just like, he knows how to drive?
Yeah, I know.
I was like, he knows how to drive, so that really distracted me. And then also my thing was, wait, how tall is he? Would his foot reach the gas pedals?
I know. Yeah, I know.
That did distract me a little bit, and I was like, okay, don't overthink it. It's a horror movie, and lots of kids know how to drive. They just aren't big enough and don't have their license, I guess.
But apart from little things like that, I really find it hard to fault.
I agree.
Because it kind of really did tick all the boxes it advertised itself to be. Was it a horror? Yes. Was it a comedy at the same time? Yes. Was the acting good? Yes. Special effects were good. Cinematography was excellent. It is kind of hard to fault it, to be honest.
I agree.
It delivers on everything it promises.
Yeah, just little things. Yeah. No, I like this one a lot. There were some parts of it were surprisingly touching, especially towards the end. Again, I don't want to give it away, but when you see Max really doing everything he can to try to rescue his family, and how does that go? Well, you'll have to see the movie because we don't want to spoil the ending for you. But I thought that was surprisingly touching. And then it goes down a whole other avenue. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, it does. Yeah, it is interesting that the whole idea that like the grandmother does say, that whole idea of spirit, if you like. One of the parts of that is sacrifice.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
for someone who's not prepared, and here's the other thing too, because it is a very interesting thing, is that part of Christian tradition, like the whole idea of Christian tradition, is that sacrifice is kind of almost at its core. It's
yes.
Now, I'm not saying that Christians today necessarily practice it, but I am saying that it's at the core of the religion. Sacrifice, the whole idea. I mean, that's what Christ died on the cross. Sacrifice, gave his life for everybody else. So, I mean, if you believe that. So, it's sacrifice is at the core of Christianity. So, yeah, so it is interesting, that idea. And then we have this scene of sacrifice, or attempted sacrifice, anyway. So the idea of redemption, it's interesting. It's really interesting,
yes.
I think. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And there wasn't, and also this movie didn't place, I don't think there was really any religiosity in this movie. There was no focus on Christian religion or praying to God. It was showing Christmas, as we mentioned, I believe, at the beginning of the podcast, as a social holiday. This is just a time for people to get together with their family and friends and appreciate each other, celebrate, give gifts. This was not about Jesus being born at all.
Yes.
There was nobody praying to God in this movie at one time at all. Which is not a bad thing. I think that's just the way this holiday has evolved, and I think that's interesting that it's now optional. You can have Christmas with Christianity or without.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think for the holiday to be as big a deal as it is, as we mentioned at the start of the show, it has to be. It has to be both a secular holiday and a religious holiday. And you can choose whichever path you want to follow.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's the thing about it. But then again, a lot of the tradition. I mean, the whole idea of Santa, it all goes back to Saint Nick. That all goes back to to pagan things. The Krampus all follows itself back through Christianity, because with Christianity, it's always going to be with good. There always has to be bad. Do you know what I mean? There has to be a balance. So if you've got a Santa, you must then have a Krampus. So that follows all about. So that's all Christian tradition.
Yes.
But the beauty of it is it's not mentioned. It's like, yeah, but it might be tradition, but that's what it is. It's tradition. It's not the reality of today. It's just a tradition. I mean, you and I, Velvet, speak English because the two countries that we were born to were originally founded as modern nations.
Right.
Well, even though there'd been people living there for hundreds of thousands of years. But you know what I mean? They were founded as nations by Britain. So we inherited... So that's our tradition, is for the two of us to speak English. But it's not necessarily the way it moves forward. How many people now speak multiple languages? You speak English and German and you sign. How many people in California now speak Spanish, even though they don't have a Spanish background? So it's just tradition. I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
No, you're making total sense. Absolutely. It is tradition, and tradition evolves and changes.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is a great representation of that. Well, I don't mean that, now instead of celebrating Christmas, we're going to be afraid on Christmas because Krampus is coming. But I mean, it's showing the social side of it, of just families getting together just because it's Christmas, not because they're religious and they need to go to church together. So this movie does a good job of showing that.
Oh, that's exactly right. Because the other thing, too, is that if you do believe in the origins of Christmas, as in the Christ story and stuff, well, the problem is that the time of year is totally wrong. I believe that people like anthropologists and stuff like that who study this stuff actually say that, look, if that event really did happen, it was probably most likely in, I don't know, like March or something like that. It definitely wasn't December, December comes about from a couple of different things. I mean, one, you've got the pagan Germanic sort of idea of solstice, obviously. Yes. But also the other thing, too, is a lot of people don't realise is that the Romans also had a god who was celebrated on the 25th of December. So it's kind of an intermix of, because the Romans actually did have a god who was a god for children who brought, this is amazing, right? Who actually brought presents for children in December.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah, so so it
That's
is
very-
so and a lot of people often sort of say, oh, Christmas, yeah, it all goes back to the pagan solstice. Well, it does, but there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of Roman stuff in there as well. And then and of course, if you are Christian, well, you've got the Christ story as well. So so yeah, it's all interesting stuff, but I don't want to bore anybody anymore with a whole heap.
Yeah,
of
for anyone
nonsense
who's
about
not
that.
into like the religion aspect of Christmas, you'll like Krampus if you like horror films and if you like a little bit of comedy sprinkled in. And I'm always excited about a good Christmas horror story, because for a long time, all Christmas horror stories were just psychos dressed up as Santa Claus killing people. And now we're coming out with these interesting anthologies. Now they're starting to delve into the lore of other countries that are of other countries that are non-English speaking, is what I should say, that have a lot of lore that we're not familiar with that surrounds Christmas, that can be made into these really good horror films. I'm kind of obsessed with Krampus now, so I kind of want to check out some of these other Krampus-themed horror films, because there's been quite a few that have come out just this month alone. I think like 2 or 3 came out this month that went straight to DVD. And so that could be 50-50. They could be good quality. They could be just, cash grabs. But I still would like to check them out and see how they are and see what they bring to the lore, if anything.
Well, here's a question for you, Velvet, right? Oh, pardon me. I'll just take a drink of water. How do you reckon the future's going to go? Because now that this sort of Germanic idea of Krampus is basically creeping into, let's just be honest and say, American culture, right?
Definitely, yes.
And then that'll then filter out everywhere around the world. It'll be in Indonesia before you know, right? So if this idea of Krampus, so the anti-Santa, if you like, did you reckon we will get to a stage in a few years' time where you won't have evil Santa movies anymore? They will just become Krampus movies as it becomes...
I could totally see that. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally could see that. Because also, for example, just not only, 12 years ago, Elf on the Shelf. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this.
Yeah.
Elf on the Shelf. I was, and I had to learn about this recently because I don't have little kids running around. So sometimes I'm a little behind on what people are doing nowadays when it comes to celebrating Christmas with children. But the whole Elf on the Shelf, where you have an elf sitting on the shelf that's, basically spying on you for Santa to see if you're good or bad. I could see in the future people starting to have Krampus decorations around the house in the United States that are just like, there's Krampus. If you're bad, he's going to come instead of Santa. Like, I could totally see that.
That's that's very interesting. I mean, because it's very interesting you say that, because in Scandinavia they do put Nessie dolls around the house at Christmas time.
See,
right? which is like this little gnome guy with this big beard. He got this big pointy hat, and they decorate the house with them.
Wow!
Because so maybe you will start to see that Krampuses, these little goat figures, start to decorate houses. It's quite possible.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't think you'll go full out and have a Krampus themed house, but just like you maybe have one Krampus ornament on your tree or one little Krampus statuette on a shelf, that kind of thing. Yeah.
The only thing that's a little bit different is that the Scandinavians do it to bring luck, right? So if you put a little, like one of these little dolls in your living room, it brings you luck. That's meant to be the whole idea. So because let's face it, if you live in the city, well, you don't have a farm anymore, so how do you leave out food for the Nessie? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So the idea now is that they'll have like little dolls and things that they'll set up in the living rooms. So, but the thing is that's a little bit different about that is they do that even though this Christmas creature is a bit evil. They're trying to put the dolls up to keep him happy, so he doesn't do mischief to the family or the house.
He's being acknowledged. It's a sign of respect. I totally get that.
Where the Krampus is a little bit different is you sort of don't want to acknowledge the Krampus in a sense because
Right.
You know,
You don't want to accidentally summon them when you get mad.
yeah, so I think that's kind of the difference, you know. But then again, you know, everything changes. I mean, look at Halloween. Look where Halloween had its origins, and look at Halloween now. Look at how much it's changed. You know, Halloween today doesn't resemble anything of its origins, you know, 150 odd years ago, let alone even going back to some of the Celtic tradition of like 2,000 years ago of Halloween, which is where the candle comes from, by the way, in the window. That's why.
Okay.
Because that's why you put the candle in the jack-o'-lantern. Because the Celts, you know, like the Irish, Scots, all this sort of stuff, what they used to do is on the Day of the Dead, right? So, like what is now sort of seen as Halloween, the idea is that because old-fashioned pagan sort of religion was that you worshipped ancestors as well, you know, this ancestor worship. Right. But even like Buddhism, like the Chinese have a lot of that, you know, ancestor worship and so forth. So the idea is that you would put a candle in the window to show your ancestors the way back to the house.
Ta-da!
So they could find their way back. And so they would follow the candlelight. And that's actually where the
Can you see that they keep going to the wrong house because they're like, damn it, there's these jack-o'-lanterns all over the place. I can't tell which one is supposed to be my nephew, my aunt. You know,
you'd be better off to send out a GPS than you would put out a jack-o'-lantern these days. You know? But what I'm trying to say is it's interesting how it all changes. So what would be fascinating is in 100 years, where may Americans, for argument's sake, be with Christmas? Where would the tradition be? Maybe in another 100 years, how will it have changed?
Right.
You know, so
because this stuff does always change and evolve, and new things get added in, and other things get taken away. So I would like to. We won't be around. I don't know. We might be around that long with the way things are advancing. Might be able to just download our consciousness into avatar robots' bodies, I guess, and then we'll be able to see the evolution.
Are you hoping? Are you hoping to become a Dalek or a Cyberman, Velvet?
Decisions. Dalek or Cyberman?
Dalek or Cyberman?
Decisions.
Both not really great choices. I mean, really,
no, definitely not.
Well, actually, you can become you can become a Cyberman because, of course, it's just your brain,
that's what they do,
right?
Yeah,
that gets you built, right? But a Dalek is quite different. You can't actually just become a Dalek. You have to actually become this creature who is then in play. It's quite different.
I have to admit, that was one of my least favorite episodes when they had the humanoid Dalek, where it was like a human with like a Dalek head, and I'm like,
I
was like, I know what you're trying to do with that episode, but no, don't do that again. Don't do that again.
No, that was sort of just like, no. I didn't. Yeah. Look, I'm a huge fan of Doctor Who. I'm a huge fan of the whole franchise, whether it be, you know, Torchwood that we had Sarah Jane Adventures. But the thing for me is that it doesn't mean every story they had was good. You know, there are occasionally where they just,
it was not.
the story just was like, nah, it just didn't work. It just didn't work. No, you know. But
the way they did this Krampus story, PG-13 rating, I'm honestly surprised how much I liked it. It's really well done, not gory. It can be a bit scary, but not too scary. Definitely appropriate for kids 13 and up. There's not really anything that I think is inappropriate for children, other than the fact that it is obviously a horror movie. So again, just parental discretion advised. You know your kids best. You know what they should and shouldn't be watching. But no. But this is really well made, high budget.
Oh, look, I totally agree. It's like there are some kids who who'd be, let's say, 14 who'd watch this and love it, and there'd be some other kids who are 14 who'd be kind of a bit freaked out. It would depend on the individual kid. And it's like you said, you know your kids, you know, sort of...
right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember, I think the first time I ever saw Alien, the very first Alien... No, Poltergeist. Do you know the film Poltergeist?
Oh,
First time I ever saw that, I think I was like 15 or something like that.
Oh, goodness.
And I'll be honest with you, it scared the fuck out of me.
Yeah, that was scary back then.
Yeah.
That was a scary movie back then, especially with when the TV with the snow. I still hate snow on TV because of fucking Poltergeist. I hate that. And nowadays it's such a rare occurrence. So if I saw snow on my television now, that would just really be freaky because it's like, what? That's like not even how TVs work anymore. Pretty much. And then that one Poltergeist where they had that stupid clown toy and it was pulling the kid under the bed. And I'm like, oh my God. And it was scary for the time. May have aged a little. But
I watch it now and I go, what the hell is scary about this movie, right? But I'll tell you what, when I was a kid, it frightened the fuck out of me.
Speaking of which, really quick, I had a family member back in the day that told me the first time he saw the Creature of Black Lagoon, he was a kid, and that scared him.
See, there you go.
So see how this stuff changes, just...
There you go.
Now he's like, I asked him then, I'm like, oh, now do you think it's funny? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, but as a kid, that was really scary.
Yeah. So it's kind of amazing how some, I remember there was somebody I knew and their child, I remember their child saw the movie The Thunderbirds, the one that was made with Bill Paxton a number of years ago.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The one without the marionettes, the one that had real actors in it. And she actually said that her son, I don't know how old he was, 5 or 6 or something at the time, and she thought it was quite appropriate for children. It's a family movie. It's, The Thunderbirds. And she said that he was actually quite frightened by it. Like, the hood actually gave him nightmares.
Oh, that's a shame. It's like that sometimes. But I remember some movies when I was a kid that were supposed to be cartoons for children, but they just had certain visual imagery that scared the piss out of me. I remember it would come on TV and I'd just start crying, and they're like, "Oh, it's that show again. Okay, let's turn it."
Yeah,
she doesn't like that one.
It's kind of amazing. So, I was just going to say, finally, Vel, we're talking about the PG-13 element. Would you have preferred this to have been 18 plus, or are you? I know you were happy with the final thing, but would you have preferred it to have been 18?
They actually did a pretty good job for what this is. I don't feel this movie needed excessive gore or excessive scares to make it any better. They actually did it quite well. From what I've heard, originally this was probably going to be an R-rating film, but the only way they could get funding is if they agreed to Universal Studios to do PG-13. Right. And they did quite well with what they did because it's still pretty scary for a PG-13 movie.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that I think because of the ending, there's no need to actually make this an R, like an 18 plus.
I agree.
It's sort of, to me, it actually works better as a PG-13, actually.
Yeah, instead of just being a gore fest, they really put thought into this and just, it's just much more creative storytelling. They worked with what they had and went from there.
Yes, we'll just say one thing, and that is that our son in this movie, the child, his experience of the Krampus and how it all will end will be somewhat different to what his grandmother experienced in the 40s. We'll just say that.
Right.
Okay?
Yes, definitely.
We're not going to say how it ends, but I'll just say that it will be a different ending. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because for a second you think it's going to just be a repeat of what happened to the grandmother, and that's where the movie would have lost me. But they went beyond that and made it something different, and I'm like, oh, now that's good storytelling. That's the way you do it.
Well, I think that's the thing. If it had have been an 18 plus, I bet you that's how the movie would have ended.
I see.
Just a retelling of the grandmother's story, sort of thing.
And I'm so glad they didn't do that. This, like I said, this one's getting added to my yearly playlist because I can't just have Christmas joy. I got to have a little bit of Christmas horror in that playlist. So, if I were to rate this out of a possible 5 Eric Roberts, I would go ahead and give this 4 because, like I said, there's some little things here and there, but all in all, I definitely recommend it. Everybody should definitely see Krampus if they enjoy holiday horror films.
Well, I actually was going to give it the same 4, but I actually think that Toni Collette is so good in this that I'm going to give it 4.5. Because
nice.
She's just there's nothing that she's in which is her performances are just they're too good for the other people she acts with sometimes. So I'm going to give it 4.5.
Well done. Well said. Yeah,
Yes.
well, this was another awesome. And you know what? Like last year, we wished for a glitch-free podcast and on Christmas, and that's what we got this year.
We did. We did. No problem so far. Touch wood. Touch wood.
Last year, we had all kinds of fun technical difficulties.
I know. So that was fun. That was fun. I enjoyed Christmas, and you know what I mean. So we will of course have our New Year's show coming up in a week's time.
Oh yeah.
So that's going to be good, but we're not going to be talking about the new year. We're going to be paying homage to a certain film. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Absolutely. We've been planning this one for a while, and it keeps getting delayed. But
Yes.
yeah, I've got a feeling it was meant to be towards the top of the year. I feel like this is just the perfect way to get started. And then we'll also be doing, not in that same episode, I don't believe, we'll also be doing pretty soon our bottom 3 and top 3, which is another one of our podcasts to a million times that I absolutely love.
We'll have to,
and we have so many movies to go through.
Well, we'll have to.
Actions.
We'll have to. But I think we'll do that in early January. So
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it won't be next week, but it'll be soon.
Yeah, no, most definitely. So, that'll be a fun one too. I'm looking forward to that. Going through all the films that we saw throughout the year. That's a lot of fun, actually. Trying to remember them all because there's a lot.
Oh, it's impossible. That's why I literally have to go through each podcast, write down the title of each movie, and then I remember, and then you have to start making your list,
I know.
whittling it down.
But we will do our best 3 and our worst 3 of 2017. So that'll be I really enjoyed doing that last time. That was really fun.
Yeah, that was really cool last time. I'm looking forward to it.
So no, that'll be really, really good. All right, well, that is basically a wrap, I think. So is there anything we need to mention, or I don't know, stuff we need to say? We're just, hang on. Something's going wrong with our microphones. Hang on. That was a little bit weird. Hang on, you're working. Yeah, here we go. Everything's working again.
Okay, sorry about that. Evidently I threw a wrench in it when I went outside. I think because I was probably drawing from my Wi-Fi, even though I had my cellular on. You know how it does that?
Yeah.
So when it had to switch to cellular, I think it just, instead of being a smooth transition, it was just like...
So, anyway.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. That's all cool. So, so basically, I think that's about it. Was there anything else we needed to say, or
just our shout outs, just our social media shout outs? Yeah.
So which everyone knows what they are anyway.
Fair enough. There you go. Good stuff.
Just follow us on Twitter if you're not already, or you know where to go. We don't need to say anything.
Okay. And you can email us at you can email us cultmovieshow@gmail.com if there's a movie you'd like us to review, or if you have a cult film, if you have a short film or an independent film that you'd like us to review, feel free to send us your screener. And we'd also love to have you on the show, and we can talk about your film. That's always a possibility. We've actually got a few people that we got to meet up with, give them a call and be like, hey,
yes, I know. We've fallen a little bit behind.
Oh, big time. It happens, especially around the holidays.
Yes.
That's just, life falls apart around the holidays. And then Krampus comes and just ruins it all.
That's exactly right. But we do have a couple of people lined up for 2018, so that'll be quite good.
Yay. That'll be cool.
All right. Well, that's basically it, I think. So
I think so.
I will basically say before Velvet destroys whatever she's doing.
Oh my goodness. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I just want to say Merry Christmas to you, Velvet. And
Merry Christmas, Warren.
And I hope you have a great day. And I hope everybody else listening has a great Christmas. And if you don't do Christmas, I just hope you have a great day anyway. So, so best wishes to everybody in the holiday season. And we'll be back, of course, next week.
Woohoo! See you guys next time.
No worries. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.